Get a job in a sideshow.
I'm having an old friend for dinner.
Paps Blue Ribbon!
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
Well, son, I guess you're right. I am a butthead.
I don't give a crap if you covered yourself in peanut butter and had a 15-hooker gangbang.
A man should have a hobby.
Kitty, 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 kitty.
Problematic.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Problematics with Fiendly and Static. I am Fiendly, aka Casey, here with my co-host and good friend.
I'm Static, aka Paul.
Excellent to have you. We're here with a film you're very familiar with, and I've only seen for the first time about a month ago.
Yeah, first time we're doing something like this where you're going in cold.
Mm-hmm. Now we are going outside of my wheelhouse for Pride Month, because this is Clive Barker's Nightbreed.
Yep. 1990, and this was the first time he was basically given unlimited control of what to do, and where did that go?
Unlimited control might be giving it way too much credit. He had his vision compromised, we'll say, and that will be very obvious as we get through the film.
Yeah, maybe it's just had unlimited control right up until he showed it to the executives.
Yeah. Classic story of queerness. That'll happen.
Yep.
No cops at Pride. That includes executives.
Yeah.
We are celebrating Pride because I am an intensely queer individual myself. I am non-binary. I'm a demigirl. My pronouns are they, them. I have sort of a weird history with queerness. Knew most of my life that I was trans and asexual, but I never really came out until my 30s, just because of lack of opportunity.
I, of course, cis male, he, him, so yeah, I'm the token straight of the group here.
We like to have representation from all forms, and that includes some straight people occasionally,
Hello.
as long as they're good allies. You've passed that test, I assure the audience.
But yeah, Clive Barker himself didn't actually come out until, I believe it was around about 95, 96-ish. Around about the time of the release of his book Sacrament. I remember a few of the interviews that he was giving at the time, where apparently at this point it had been public knowledge for maybe a few months or so. And he was giving interviews, being asked what it's suddenly like, but what it's like suddenly being thought of as a gay creative. And he was like, basically just said, well, kind of what it was last week, except you weren't asking me about my sex life all the time.
Yeah, that is another big part of the queer experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, this is Don't Get It, and they go right to the most invasive questions. His coming out was a very casual sort of thing that he just dropped out of nowhere, basically, right?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was essentially the protagonist of Sacrament was one of the protagonists was a gay man. And a few interviews were like, so how difficult did you find it getting into the headspace of a gay man? And he essentially just said, well, speaking as a gay man. And the interviews basically went, what? And it was like, did you not know? Was it not obvious? And yeah, looking back at a lot of his work, it's shocking that we all missed it at the time.
He was skating by on the old gay or British trope from the 90s.
Pretty much. Him, Stephen Fry, everyone was like, oh, they're just eccentric. It's like,
Well, we're lucky to have them in the community, that is for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because Nightbreed is a very interesting story of queerness and its oppression.
Yep.
We've been through my history, which is non-existent. Watched the movie for the first time earlier this month. Mm-hmm. You got anything more interesting there?
Well, the movie came out in 1990, so I would have been about 8, maybe 9 at the time. And I remember weirdly not seeing adverts for it for the movie, seeing lots of adverts for the video game. Because I used to read a lot of gaming magazines at the time, and they made it look like the first time you saw Resident Evil or Silent Hill, they made it look like the most terrifying thing imaginable, with all these grotesque monsters. And then you find out the monsters are the good guys, but we don't really know that at the time. The movie itself, I probably saw when it came on British TV a couple of years later. At that point, I think it was probably about 10, 11. I'd read the book it was based on, Cabal, and weirdly, like a week after I read the book, the movie came on. That young in the 90s, I didn't see it as any kind of... didn't see it as having any kind of queer subtext, because those words just didn't exist for us back then.
I feel like most people missed that the first decade or so it existed.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, it was a tale of outcasts not being allowed to be who they are. Less gay, more weird kids banding together. And obviously, as a weird kid myself, that kind of resonated with me. And finding out that, the movie was absolutely butchered. Essentially, I was lamenting the fact that there was a version of this film that I would never get to see. And then, of course, when it finally got re-released, it was a day one purchase for me. I got the special edition from Arrow Video, which comes in a very nice box, and has countless hours of additional scenes, behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, you name it. So, yeah.
Now, is that the director's cut or one of the earlier re-releases?
The only version we got in the UK, for the moment at least, was had the director's cut available.
Okay, so that wasn't available until 2014.
Yeah.
This thing was a legend for those many decades.
Well, I'd only really found out about it around about the time of the Occupy Midian thing, which we'll probably talk about later, which was around about, I think it was 2009, 2010.
Interesting.
So, for about 4 or 5 years, this was a mythical, a legend. Sort of like finding out that the missing scenes from Event Horizon actually do exist and they're pristine. But in this case, the only things they had were just really crappy quality VHS work prints. So I always thought, well, that's the best we'll get. Do I really want to see it, or do I want to imagine this perfect vision in my mind? And amazingly, it all came together, and we've got the director's cut and the various Cabal cuts.
Yeah, finally. At long last. It's funny you mention it, though. I hadn't really considered the tie-in media and its extremely targeted appeal at children, because it was 2 separate video games and a long-running series of comic books.
Yep. Yeah, surprisingly, the comics were published by Marvel as part of their Epic imprint, which was aimed at slightly older audiences, sort of like their 15-plus audience, along with a similar Hellraiser line. The games... Well, the games came out on Amiga and Atari ST, if I remember correctly. And the market for those, there was no market really outside of teenage boys. So you can argue the case that they were more aimed at children and teenagers. But yeah, the advertising for them was everywhere. And that was really my first experience with the series, with the film, I should say.
Yeah, it's interesting that they went for kids for this definitely R-rated movie that is pretty intense in parts of it. And we have a content list a mile long for this one, so we'll get to those warnings momentarily. So yeah, the film came out in 1990, an intensely butchered release.
Yep.
As noted, the theatrical release it's hard to find these days, because finally in 2014... a very dissatisfied Clive Barker got a hold of the original film with the help of Shout Factory and was able to recut most of what he wanted back in, although he was also disallowed to film a lot of what he wanted by executives at the time. Yeah,
they talk about it in the intro to the director's cut. The original version, as they wanted to release it back then, doesn't really exist. So they replaced a few scenes with additional scenes additional other scenes. So the director's cut is only about 30 minutes longer, but it contains 40 minutes of new footage. Work that one out.
Yeah, this thing needed a Snyder cut. It needed $50 million of reshoots.
Considering the film only cost $11 million to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Never gonna happen.
Yep. So we got the best version we could hope to get based on the existing footage, but...
Yeah. The version as exists in Clive Barker's mind is, as I said, an impossible dream. But this is probably as close as we'll get to that dream.
Yep. It's based on one of his books, and he was hoping, it's a very cinematic book, and he was hoping that it would become the fantasy Star Wars.
Yeah, Cabal. Surprisingly, only written in 8 months.
I mean, it's only, 250 pages? Something like that?
Something. Yeah, I've seen a few places class it as a novella, or
Yeah.
novella, however you pronounce that. Like the Hellbound Heart, which Hellraiser was famously based on. That one, I think, is only about 150, 170 pages. It's more robust as a book, and the book itself is very short, very punchy, very well worth reading if you can get hold of it.
Yeah, I would say so. I was able to listen to the audiobook, which is free on YouTube. Highly recommend listening to that. The reader for the audiobook is excellent.
Oh, who did they get to do it?
His name's Graham something. Not a famous actor.
Graham somebody. Fantastic chap.
Really impressive work. Highly recommend listening to that. When he first sold the screenplay, which was written by Mark Frost initially,
Yep.
of Twin Peaks fame. Yep.
Yep. Jinx.
When he first sold it, it was as a trilogy. There was going to be a Nightbreed trilogy. Eventually, he got talked down to a 3-picture deal, and only 2 of the movies were going to be Nightbreed. And then eventually, it flopped so bad, and the executives didn't get it so thoroughly that just the one Nightbreed movie ever came of that deal.
Yeah, I believe the only other film he directed after that was Lord of Illusions, which was another film based on his works. That film flopped immensely as well.
Yeah, before his legendary status, he apparently had a rough go of it.
Yep. Could not get a project off the ground for years after that.
He still kind of slums it every now and then. He had like a Midnight Meat Train, and then decades between films.
The little amount of Hollywood work he does these days is mostly producing. He did give the recent Hellraiser reboot his blessing, but other than that, I think he's been burned way too often by the studio system that he's like, nah, I'll just stick to my books and occasionally a comic and a video game if that's all right.
What a life. Wasn't his video game also like a big flop?
Clive Barker's Jericho. He did 2. He did Jericho and The Undying.
That's the one, yeah.
Undying was a huge cult hit, did not sell well. Jericho was not. I have a soft spot for it. I had fun with it. A lot of people didn't like it for various reasons. It feels superficially like a Clive Barker project, is probably the nicest thing to say about it.
Sounds like something that would be right in my wheelhouse.
I
Culty
reckon
trash.
you would genuinely enjoy it. For better and worse.
I'll probably find out someday. You had something to say about the concept of a Nightbreed trilogy, did you?
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how he could have filled that out, because yes, the film has enough content for one, with everything being truncated as it was. The original theatrical release goes through everything lightning fast. I can only imagine that the other 2 would have been based on the comics, or the comics were based on his ideas, because they are a direct continuation of everything that happens from the movies.
Yeah, I was very unsurprised to learn that this was initially planned to be a trilogy, because it feels like it wants to be a trilogy when you watch the movie.
Yeah, and there's another timeline where this is basically an urban gothic Lord of the Rings.
That is the timeline I wish I was in, where our equivalent of Game of Thrones is basically a queer metaphor.
Oh god, that would be amazing. Just rather than you know nothing, Jon Snow, it's Narcisse thinks you're full of shit.
Yep, we were so close.
Robbed we were. Robbed.
Well, let's see what we weren't robbed of in the final release of Nightbreed, the director's cut, which is what we'll be covering, because good God, we could not, for the life of us, cover all the various cuts.
The Ultimate Edition, as we said, is 3.5 hours long, and that's a big commitment to give for most films.
Mm-hmm.
The Cabal cut, the Ultimate Cabal cut, we should just say as well, is essentially absolutely everything they could possibly find. Pacing is thrown to the wind, and it is all the available usable footage just jammed into one. Worth watching if you're a fan. Can't really say I recommend it if you're not. The director's cut is the best way to go if you're just coming to the film new.
It is widely accepted as the canon version. If you watch the film on streaming or if you rent it or whatever, you're watching the director's cut these days.
Yep. Certainly give the theatrical cut a watch after you've seen it, just to see the differences and how badly it was cut to ribbons. But
yeah, I've yet to take that advice myself, but I hope to sometime soon.
It goes through blindingly fast. It feels like you're watching the film on fast forward.
Yeah, the director's cut is even paced badly in a way that is way too fast.
Yeah, if watching the 2-hour version, we're like, should have been 3.
Yeah, definitely.
What about this 3.5-hour version? Oh no, that's too much.
We need the baby bear cut. Just the right porridge.
Maybe Topher Grace is working on one. I'm sure we can ask him.
So, we will get into Nightbreed, the director's cut, after these content warnings.
The following presentation features discussion of body horror, cannibalism, LGBTQ+ oppression, homophobic slurs, child murder, police brutality, and suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, those of you who are willing to accept discussions of child murder.
Now you know it's a serious podcast.
Yes. Take us seriously. We have edgy material in here. Hot stuff coming through. So Nightbreed opens with 2.5 minutes of credits, scrolling over cave paintings with Danny Elfman music. It's not a good tone setting. It feels like you're getting into an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's compared to the rest of the film, it's very at odds with what we eventually see.
Yeah, I feel like Elfman comes and goes as far as appropriateness for the score in this movie.
Yeah, there's a couple of sequences where you're like, oh yes, this is a Danny Elfman score that we're listening to. And the rest of it just sounds fairly generic. Very strange.
It's the distinctive Elfman touches that are often the most out of place, too.
Yeah.
Once we mercifully survive the credits, though, we are treated to a long series of quick cuts of, like, guys in creepy makeup running through grass towards some cemetery gates off in the distance.
The opening sequence proper, it really looks like an After Dark session at Dragon Con with all these people in weird makeup.
Yeah, I mean, the makeup effects are good, and they are not especially well shot in this opening scene.
Yeah, it feels like this was done way after the fact, when, as far as I'm aware, it was always meant to be in the script. So...
I was going to say it might have been shot in sequence, and they hadn't quite yet nailed the manner of how they wanted to shoot the monsters.
Possibly. I know for a fact that a few sequences were shot earlier than others, but we'll get to that later.
But anyway, it turns out all those creepy monsters running towards the cemetery and then locking it behind themselves, those were just a dream. And our sexy, manly hero, Boone, awakens in Canada next to his girlfriend, Lori.
Yes. This film will take great pains to remind you that it is set in Canada, which is bizarre considering some of the things that occur.
Yeah. I can't imagine why Clive Barker chose to set it in Canada. He's British himself.
Yeah, it's even the original book is set in Canada as well, which is even more baffling.
Yep, every version of the story, it's Canadian. And I don't know why. Loaded with Canadian specifics.
I'm going to assume he just didn't know what Canada was like and assumed it was just like another part of Texas.
Given some of the characters in this movie, that's a working theory that we can investigate further. So Boone, indeed, a handsome man with a beautiful girlfriend. He's happy in his bed. He even doesn't mind the nightmares anymore. And he hasn't been having his hallucinations for which he has been seeing a therapist. That same therapist has been hounding him for a week, trying to get him to come back, but he says he's fine. Doesn't want to do it. Hasn't been answering the therapist calls. So he's doing good. He's going to go live his life and ignore this obnoxious therapist.
Hashtag living his best life.
Yeah.
Between Laurie and Boone, I need to ask, who has the better hair?
Honestly, I'm a fan of Laurie's style. It's very 80s, but they're both very 80s.
They both have the most luxurious heads of hair. It's unreal.
It really is, yeah. Their kids are going to have his sexiest of Nightbreed haircuts. There is a Nightbreed with a pompadour, and that's probably going to be their child's future path as well.
I don't know if I feel sorry for them or not. Also, in the apartment, there's a couple of shots where you can see over by the window with all that you see outside is just neon lights blasting into the apartment. And honestly, that's my idea of hell. Like, how is he meant to get any sleep in there? Genuinely. He doesn't have any curtains.
Yep. Their apartment is surreal. It has a extremely narrow spiral staircase in it. Like it's a foundry or something.
Yeah, one wrong move getting up out of bed, and you are going down that and breaking every bone in your body.
Yeah. And the next shot we see after the bedroom scene is a naked Boone coming down that spiral staircase. Fresh out of the shower.
Yeah. I think he's wearing a towel.
He is wearing a towel, but I mean, that doesn't count. If you walk down the street in just a towel, the police are going to arrest you for being naked.
Well, I know what I'm trying to prove this weekend.
I dare you. Report back with your results.
Form an orderly riot. Trying to get me to go back home.
Yep. Seems to just be an excuse to get this hot guy out of his clothes, though.
Yeah. Again, finding out that Clive Barker was in the closet filming this, it's kind of like, is that him abusing his ability to get hot guys in the movie or no?
Yeah, the movie is male-gazy for none of the women and all the men and monsters.
This film is a treat for the eyes if you are female or gay.
Or a monster fucker.
That too. Shouldn't sassy.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to the official monster fucker review when we get some more monsters on screen. But Boone is caught off guard in his naked state, and the phone finally gets him. He doesn't let it go to the machine. He just picks it up, and it is his therapist that he's been skirting this whole time. Dr. Decker wants him to come in immediately, even though the establishing shot shows that it is late at night. The moon is fully out.
Yeah, this has to be like 9-10 o'clock in the evening. And he's like, no, you absolutely I need to see you now.
Yeah, it comes across as a booty call.
It really does.
It's so weird. There's this weird sexual tension in a few spots between Decker and Boone. And this is sort of one of them. There's
a few theories as to the relationship between Decker and Boone. It gets pretty intense with the way that people discuss it.
Yeah.
Decker himself, Philip K. Decker. And yes, that is a direct reference to Philip K. Dick. He's played by David Cronenberg, famous director. And apparently Barker asked him to star in the film while having lunch with him and John Landis, of all people.
Good God.
Yeah.
Shocking that Clive Barker and David Cronenberg were the least evil people at that table.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, as he's talking about it in the commentary, he describes it as, and I quote, a very strange lunch, then gives a knowing chuckle.
It's an unforgettable luncheon, that's for sure.
Oh, boy, howdy.
And originally, when I saw this movie, I thought they said it in Canada just so they could cast David Cronenberg. But no, it's in the original book as well.
Yeah. Apparently, Cronenberg was the first and only choice to play Decker. And Barker did not know what he was going to do if he said no.
Movie's over.
Yep, pretty much. At bonus points, in his downtime between scenes, he was actually working on the script for Naked Lunch. That had to be a bit of a mindfuck.
Yeah, his performance is occasionally a little bit checked out. And maybe it's because he's working on one of the most extreme mindfuck films of all time. But also, he's got a phenomenal look for the sort of professorial therapist.
Oh, yeah. Visually and in quite a few of his scenes, he just absolutely nails it.
Yeah, totally. Some of his line deliveries, kind of empty and soulless. But overall, he's value added, I think.
Oh, 100%.
It's, for the novelty, if nothing else, a good reason to have him in the film.
I mean, off the top of my head, the only other film that I can think of that I've definitely seen that he's been in was Jason X.
Huh, I didn't even remember him in that.
Yeah, funnily enough, plays a professor.
Yeah, I'm sure that's most of his roles. He's got that
Pretty
look.
much, yeah. Great film. I will go to my grave defending that film, by the way.
And I was about to say, I sat through all of Jason X and I didn't even get to see David Cronenberg. Screwed twice.
Gotcha again.
Secretly, I think Jason X is actually pretty good as well.
Yeah, love that film.
So Decker's request to have Boone over immediately is denied for common sense reasons.
Yep.
So he insists that he come over early the next day, and he says, "Don't let me down," before hanging up. Then he opens an ominous briefcase and says, "God help us both," to no one in particular.
He's talking to his lunch. He's had a long day, and he's got a ham and cheese sandwich in there, and he's like, "God help me."
This ham better be good. I have nothing else to live for.
No mustard? Mother of God.
And speaking of celebrations of food, elsewhere, there is a fat couple in a 90s household just celebrating their fatness. Man says, I like being fat and I like you, fat. And they're happy, they're tickling each other. It's a beautiful little moment. You never see this kind of fat body positivity.
The father is played by Mac McDonald. He's got a long career in TV, movies, lots of voice work as well.
He's got the TV dad look.
Yeah, he really does. He is like the TV dad or the guy in charge.
Yeah, this is basically the guy that Peter Griffin is flanderizing.
Yep. If he looks familiar, you've probably seen him in the director's cut of Aliens, where he plays Simpson, the colony admin. Or if you're a fan of Red Dwarf, he plays Captain Hollister.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, big deal in UK comedy.
Yep. Just out of nowhere, we've got this loving couple having an excellent movie night.
Yep. Not movie night, they're actually watching hockey, just to remind you that this is in Canada.
See, I missed that, but if I'd been asked in a vacuum what they were watching, I should have guessed hockey.
Yeah, no, they are hammering home the Canadianness of this film.
So the mother goes to get snacks, and she is confronted by her toe-headed Damien Omen child up the staircase.
Seriously, this kid is fucking creepy.
He really is. Speaking of soulless line deliveries, this kid just says, "I saw a bad man and I can't sleep," as flat as I just did. And his mother says, "Don't worry about it. There's no such thing as the bad man. Just go lie down."
But then...
Well, she goes through her 90s house, off to the fridge. Notices that the back door is open. But, she's in the suburbs. You don't lock your doors around here.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Fine. It's totally fine.
Yep. Over by the fridge, there's some soda, some purple stuff, and a bad man. My God.
Psycho killer. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yeah, it's a classic, close the mirror sort of jump scare.
Yep.
Where she closes the fridge door, and behind it is a guy wearing a burlap mask with buttons sewn over the eyes and a misaligned zipper for the mouth.
This is an incredibly unsettling mask. It's very simple, but good God, is it amazing to look at. So creepy.
It's the most horrifying face in the entire movie, full of monsters.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I absolutely love this design to bits.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing design. I am disturbed by the practicality of it.
Yeah, it really, unlike, say, Freddy Krueger's Claw, this genuinely does look like something someone made in their spare time in a basement.
Yeah. I want to know how they filmed while wearing the mask. Because it's buttons over the eyes. That should be completely blinding. Not only does it take out your peripheral entirely, it just covers your eyes.
Yeah, see, I was wondering that as well, and I was not able to find anything saying, okay, the holes were actually bigger than they look on the buttons, or, it was mostly, opaque plastic or something. No idea.
There are some long shots where you can see that the eyes are sort of, glassy instead of plasticky, like buttons.
Yeah.
Which means in those long shots, they had a version of the mask where the eyes were just opaque plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what I figured. And for the close-up shots with what they call the hero mask, they probably would have essentially been acting in the dark.
Yeah, it's impressive. And it's a really cool mask that an actual serial killer would not want to wear because his victims would have a huge advantage over him.
Yeah, completely impractical, but good God, does it look cool.
Yep. And within seconds of his appearance on screen, he has slashed the mother twice. Once clean across the throat, she is bleeding to death on the bathroom floor. Or the kitchen floor. So he just walks away to leave her to die. The son sees the bloody killer walk across the hallway to where the father is. And he just flips the lights out to try and piss off the father first. And then grabs him by the head and slashes his throat.
Yep. No hugs for you, Hugo.
Yep. And then it's a slow ascent up the stairs towards the child who's just left to stare at him as the scene cuts.
Yep. Not even, 7 minutes in, and we've already got our first child murder. One on the board.
Really, really effective, disturbing scene. The introduction of Buttonface, the killer.
Yep.
Really had to vilify this monstrosity of a person.
And technically speaking, we haven't even seen any real monsters yet.
Yeah, only in brief flashes that are in nightmares, so...
Yeah.
Who's the real monster is what they're very explicitly, symbolically asking.
Oh yeah, this film is not subtle about its messaging, which, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, some of it had to be slipped past censors, so there is some subtlety to the messaging, but most of it is very on the nose.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm still lamenting the loss of that bad positivity.
Yeah.
You really don't see it often enough.
Yeah, 1990, the only other show like that would have been Roseanne, and well, the less said about Roseanne Barr, the better.
Seriously. So, after that nightmare of a scene, we just cut to Boone at work. He's a mechanic at a car shop.
Yep. Working underneath a car in, I think they call it the pit.
Yeah.
So, like, right from the beginning, he is symbolically underground.
Yep. And he's got a welder's mask, so masked.
Yep.
Interesting. And Lori shows up to surprise him and invite him to a club later on at which she will be performing live music. But she has to tell him this between makeout kisses because they immediately get hot and heavy.
I am not someone who goes much for public displays of affection at the best of times. I have never made out with a girlfriend like this at work or in the street or anywhere.
Yeah, these two are wildly inappropriate.
These two are the horniest couple that has ever existed.
They cannot keep their hands off each other. It feels almost like the executives read the first few pages of the book and saw that Boone is canonically impotent. And they said, no, sharp swerve away from that. Make Boone the horniest man alive.
Yeah, we need to give him a rampaging case of the not gays.
Yep. Get him all over this lady. Not this limp-dicked protagonist you have in this book here.
Nope, none of that. Set everything on fire.
And it's a major part of his character in the book that he is impotent.
Yeah,
because he's a gorgeous man, but he doesn't have much success with the ladies because he can't get it up.
As I remember, he correct me if I'm wrong because I didn't get a chance to reread the book. And it's been a few years. They make the point that he's been impotent at the very least since before he met Laurie, isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah, Laurie likes him and he likes her because she doesn't judge him for his impotence.
Yeah.
And he's like damaged and Laurie is trying to like nurse him back to health.
Yeah, the fact
mentally.
That they've never actually successfully slept together is kind of a bit of a plot point with no pun intended, a payoff later.
She says she slept with him 3 times and it was incredibly unsatisfying. But they still thumbed it in, as is a term some have used. But that extremely important aspect of the character, completely out the window. Don't worry, Boone is straight and cool and everyone wants to be him.
He's a man's man.
Yep. All he has is a dark past that he's overcome. The therapy has helped him get over his weird hallucinations that we don't get any specific details on just yet. But Dr. Decker does want to see him urgently.
He's sleeping well, just maybe not with his girlfriend. He's moisturized. He's in his lane. He's able to maintain a bone for at least 22 seconds. Everything is coming up Millhouse.
He's almost incapable of not having a boner, it seems. So before he can go to Laurie's concert, after work, he stops by Decker's office finally. And he just professes his clean bill of mental health. He's good to go.
Yep. This psychiatric office that he's in will probably surprise quite a few people to learn that I have seen a few therapists in my time. This office is, it seems, probably deliberately one of the least inviting therapist rooms I have ever seen, like in real life or in movies. The sofa or chair that he's sitting in looks deliberately designed to be as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, there's a modern art installation in the center of the room.
Yep.
That Boone just fiddles with. And then there's a wall of Oni masks.
Yeah, like
that's a choice.
The whole point of these kind of rooms is supposed to be like warm and comforting, so there's lots of nice warm browns and oranges, and this place looks like something out of a yuppie's office, which it probably was. But it is harsh lighting, sharp objects everywhere, which, not a good idea.
Nonetheless, he has somehow managed to achieve some form of mental stability after a very rough period that we did not see preceding the film. Decker says he would have dropped the case, but he found Boone intriguing, which is more evidence of sexual tension between them.
Yeah. Again, not subtle.
Yeah, that is how Alejandro Jodorowsky of Holy Mountain fame interpreted their entire relationship.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know if it was after the premiere or sometime later when he saw it, but Jodorowsky apparently came up to Clive Barker and congratulated him on making, and I quote, the first true gay horror film.
And Elm Street 2 had been out many years before, if I'm not mistaken.
I think about 5 or 6, yeah. Presumably he didn't see that one, I don't know.
Guess not, probably didn't consider it worth his time.
Yeah.
Being just a generic slasher. There's definitely a temptation towards assimilated gayness here with Cronenberg, Dr. Decker. Possibly what they are suggesting, and I think even more so, what they're driving at is conversion therapy. Yes, because what Decker has him here for is that Dr. Decker was delivered some crime scene photos recently by the police in hopes that one of Decker's patients, might have been involved with the crimes. And those crimes are a series of grisly murders.
Yeah,
10 families slashed to death in 6 months.
Yeah, all families, which is a theme that we'll keep seeing throughout the film.
Yep, straight, happy families. And the pictures, they show them briefly. They pull no punches. There is kids on the couch with their throats slit, a crib full of blood and a dead baby. It's brutal.
It all goes by so quickly that you can be forgiven for not actually noticing most of the grisly details.
Yeah, and the reason Decker has shown him these photos is because the images and locations in which they were taken all perfectly match descriptions that Boone himself has given during his discussions of his supposed hallucinations, which I guess were not hallucinations.
Yeah, apparently he's been describing every single one of his murders in fascinating detail.
Yeah, all this time, he's been under like a light hypnosis that he barely remembers, and has revealed details of monsters, murders, and Midian.
A name that keeps coming up in his sessions.
Yeah, Midian is apparently the name of a place that he heard about from other mental patients during his treatment.
Yeah,
and
almost
it's a
like
place where you can go to have your sins forgiven.
Yeah, almost like an earworm or a meme amongst the mentally ill, they make it sound.
Yeah, so it turns out Boone is Buttonface.
Yes.
And he's found out. He's got his confessions on tape. So he has 24 hours to turn himself in. Decker gives him some mystery pills to help him sleep, and then, I guess, want to accept his fate as the notorious serial killer.
Now, I'm no legal professional, but letting him go like that kind of makes Deckard an accessory after the fact, doesn't it?
Yeah, they really get into it in the book, how Decker knew about the killings. He knew there was a correlation between the serial killings that were happening and Boone's descriptions thereof, and let it go on during the treatment.
Yeah, that is aiding and abetting.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's got his mystery pills and his terrible, terrible task to undertake. Boone's happy life is shattered.
And he just had 3 days to go till retirement.
Pretty much, yeah. That night he was going to go see Laurie and never worry about his mental health issues again. So he takes one pill and is immediately an addict. The next scene, he spills all the pills on the floor accidentally as he's like sweating and trying to take more.
Yeah, there's a little shot where the pills fall down, and some of them, I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but with the lighting, make it look like tiny little moons. It's kind of a nice shot, but it's immediately forgotten by the fact that he is absolutely instantly tripping nuts.
Yeah. He's just insta-junkie, and he burns his clothes and his passport and a bunch of pictures, hallucinates one of his sex scenes with Laurie.
Yep.
He's also symbolically burning that.
Yep. There's a moment in the director's commentary where you see Boone sitting in front of, I don't know if it's like a plate or a plaque or something, and Barker actually describes it as him sitting in front of a halo, and then goes, occasionally I knew what I was doing. And also, this entire sequence, he's doing it in a pair of Y-fronts.
Yeah, he's down to his underpants.
He is wearing nothing but a pair of tighty whities and sweat.
Yep. This is sort of where we get the conversion therapy metaphor. Boone is obsessed with monsters, and he dreams about monsters, and he talks about monsters. And here we have Decker convincing him, you actually are a monster, and monsters are bad, and don't be a monster.
And then he immediately pumps him full of drugs to try and influence his worldview on him.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what they were going for. Conversion therapy was already a controversial issue in the late 80s. And now for the weather. We just go to the club, and Laurie performs all of Johnny Get Angry by Joni Summers. Yep.
This song. Oh boy. This song, I should say, at one point in its fairness, that it's from 1962. But the entire thing is basically about a girl who keeps putting her boyfriend into horrible situations where he will get upset at her.
Yep.
I've got some of the lyrics here, because if you've not seen this scene, the lyrics need to be heard to be believed. Johnny, I said we were through, just to see what you would do. You stood there and hung your head, made me wish that I were dead. Every girl wants someone who she can always look up to. You know I love you, of course. Just let me know that you're the boss. This girl does not want a healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's fair.
This song genuinely, I'd never heard. This was my first time actually watching the full director's cut, and watching this song and listening to the lyrics, my jaw dropped.
I was going to ask if there was a cut of this movie that at least reduces the music video.
Yeah, this entire sequence was cut from the theatrical version, to the point where Clive Barker actually fought to keep it in the original. He believes that this whole song and Boone running away from Laurie, he actually said it was one of the key scenes of the film. And when he was told that he had to cut it, the executive said, it's just a small scene, it's a musical number, nobody cares. And he apparently replied, I care, people who love movies care. To which I can say, no, we don't.
Yeah, the best part is that he's wrong. The scene isn't in the book at all, and it isn't necessary.
Although, I will give credit, Laurie's actress did do the entire song live. Apparently she did it in practically one take. They just did a couple of others for coverage and so on. So everything you are seeing is her just belting it out. And she does have a pretty good voice.
Yeah, I mean, for an actress singing in a film, it honestly is a good performance.
Yeah, just could we not have picked something a little better?
Yeah, this is just like every episode of Twin Peaks: The Return goes out on a performance like this.
Yes.
And you just skip to next episode once it starts.
Yeah, except for that one episode featuring the 9 Inch Nails.
Yep. But that time, the performance is in the middle of the episode, so
Yeah.
you basically can't skip it. Nor would you.
You don't have a choice. Settle down, fucker.
So Boone, also, just like us, the audience, watches the entire performance, but just as she's wrapping up, he rolls his eyes like he's losing his mind, and then he runs out of the building and disappears.
He skedaddles.
Yep. Didn't want to have to answer the question, was that a good show or not?
It was wow. I mean, wow. He didn't actually say if it was good or not. Nope. See ya.
You were really up there and going for it. Rather than have to confront his girlfriend about her onstage performance, Boone goes wandering through the streets, having flashbacks to the photographs of crime scenes and one extremely brief shot of a porcupine lady that he's seen once before in his dreams.
Yeah. It's very easy to misinterpret this sequence as he heard his girlfriend sing in public for the first time and now wants to go walk into the traffic.
Yep. Because walk into traffic is exactly what he does. He jumps out in front of a Mack truck going full speed down the street.
And it gets nothing worse than a few scrapes and a dirty jacket.
Yeah, it's weird. And also the cinematic language is that of a drug trip gone wrong. And he just sort of stumbled drunkenly into the street. But the book makes it clear it is a suicide attempt because he can't deal with what he's done as a murderer.
Yeah, it looks like something from a 1940s PSA.
Yeah, it's so reefer madness.
Yeah, and there's maybe one second just right before he gets hit by the truck where his expression hardens and you're like, oh no, he actually wants this.
Mm-hmm. Very subtle filmmaking, although in the next scene, like you said, he's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
He's got a little scratch on his head with the tiniest bit of blood. No explanation in either version as to how he survived the Mack truck. But honestly, the doctor is only concerned with the pills he's been taking, which it turns out are brown acid. And he has been having a bad trip for the entire day since he got them.
Yeah, doesn't he say that he's been taking PCP?
Yeah, he says, back in my day, we call this stuff acid.
Yeah.
You've been having a bad trip, go sleep it off, you suicidal truck jumper.
Go home. Assuming you haven't burned it all to the ground.
Yep. But no, he does get to take a nap in a hospital room where he is awoken by mumblings of a mental patient.
We haven't had that
One of his
yet.
favorite sounds.
It's been a while. He probably missed the sounds.
Yeah. When he has to go to sleep, he doesn't turn on ocean sounds. He puts on mumblings of a mental patient. Which I'm pretty sure is a Frank Zappa album.
That or he's just been listening to me on our streams.
Yeah, both of us, honestly. But this particular mental patient, just like all of them, is mumbling about Midian.
Yep. This, I feel like, should have been where Midian was introduced. It would make more sense for it to be here, rather than, oh, I picked it up somewhere else.
It would, but he wouldn't be quite so invested in it. You need a different way to make the character mumbling about Midian in the first place to be interesting to him.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
It just feels clumsy no matter how they've done it.
Utterly, yes. That is a recurring thing throughout the entire Nightbreed story. In both versions of the story, even in the book, there's constantly awkwardness.
Yeah.
I love the story. The way it is presented is irrefutably flawed, no matter which version you're going through.
Yeah, things happen because they need to happen so we can get to the next bit.
Precisely. So the next bit is Boone gets up and talks to this gentleman, who is like a metalhead. He's got long, scraggly hair. He's a total mess.
Yeah, he looks like Alice Cooper crossed with David Dastmalchian.
So this is an actor from your neck of the woods, we recently learned.
Yes, this is Hugh Ross, a actor from Glasgow. He apparently is a very nice chap, was friends with Clive Barker for years, and he got added to the film Again, primarily because Barker was like, I can't think of anyone else who could play this. He actually describes him in the commentary as the most bisexual monster in Midian, which, big claim. He has competition.
So here he is in the hospital. It's not a mental hospital, so I don't know what the hell he's doing here. He is not injured.
He's just hanging out.
Yeah, seriously. He pulls shiny hooks that are meant to be worn as thumb rings out of his pockets.
Yeah, shiny metal blades that he says he made himself.
Yeah. Slaps them on his thumbs, just so that he can do a very accurate representation of what they do in Midian if you show up and you are not welcome there.
It's like, have they got a secret handshake? No, but...
They cut your head off.
They have a secret degloving ritual.
Yep. So he wants to go to Midian. Boone wants to go to Midian. And Boone says, just where is this Midian of ours? And that convinces Metalhead that he's an emissary from Midian sent to take them both there.
Yes, they literally do a, I know, but I want to know if you know kind of moment.
Yes, my son.
Literally, it's like, is this shit for real?
Yep.
I think he really only gets away with it because this gentleman is clearly a babbling lunatic.
Yeah. Like, he is on his last legs. His connection to sanity is one thread away from being gone entirely.
Yeah, he genuinely gives the impression of someone who has been up for the last 3 days on meth.
Totally.
And that's just going by his teeth alone. He has a mouth like a graveyard made of used cigarette butts.
So, Metalhead takes the bait and says, Midian is here between these 3 very specific Canadian small towns. I didn't even bother writing them down, but one of them is Sheerneck, which will be vaguely important later on.
I actually went to have a look. So he says that Midian is near Athabasca in Alberta, Peace River, Sheerneck, and Dwyer. Athabasca and Peace River do exist. Sheerneck and Dwyer, unsurprisingly, do not. But, fun fact, Dwyer is actually an Irish name, meaning Dark Wise One.
Ooh.
I wonder if that
Ominous.
means anything.
The weird thing is I've heard Sheerneck before. It exists somewhere, just perhaps not there.
Yeah, never heard of it outside the context of this film.
Yeah, I don't know my Canadian enough, but... It's entirely possible we just embarrassed ourselves in front of all of Canada.
Yeah, don't worry, neither does Clive Barker.
Owned.
Take that, master of the macabre.
Yep. So now that Metalhead's delusions have been fully indulged, he has lost his mind completely. He believes he needs to pass a test in order to be whisked away to Midian by his new friend.
Yeah, like, Boone is a leather-clad lost boy, which I suppose he kind of is.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Metalhead decides that his test is that he's an actor, and he has a secret second face beneath his own face, which he just needs to reveal.
And it turns out he is fucking insane.
His secret hidden face is the muscle beneath his own skin, as he peels the flesh off of his head, takes his thumb blades right to his scalp, and peels his long, luxurious locks clean off.
Yeah, he cuts around his face and pulls back, so he's not pulling off his face. He's pulling off all the skin on the rest of his head, which...
Yep.
Hardcore.
An intentionally cinematic change from the novel, where he peels off his face, specifically, because, you know, he's an actor and he wants to have his actual face on screen.
Yeah, this was the day before. This was in the days before the MCU, where you could convince someone to wear a mask for 3 hours.
Yep, but not Hugh Ross. He wants to be acknowledged. He just doesn't want his actual hair on screen anymore, so he peels that off and rips all the skin off his neck as well.
Yeah, weirdly though, he still has some stringy bits of hair hanging down the back of his neck for the rest of the film.
Yeah, he's got like a ponytail.
Yeah, like
of barely attached flesh.
It's the fucking weirdest mullet I've ever seen.
It really is. And just as he takes his blades to his own face, Decker and the police arrive to interview Boone. Decker has clearly ratted out Boone to the cops as a murderer.
Yep.
but they are distracted by the guy killing himself.
Understandably so.
Yep. Boone makes quick eye contact with Decker and then bolts out the door.
Yeah, there's like a weird long lingering shot of the pair of them staring at each other.
Yep. But it ultimately doesn't matter. Decker does not give chase. Instead, he wants to interview the guy who just cut his own face off. He insists on a solo meeting with this guy and gets it. The detective that he's working with is, I think, the only person of color in the entire film, unfortunately.
Some of the breed are, I believe, played by persons of color. But
Yeah,
a lot
but
of them
they're
are
the
under
ones in the most makeup.
yeah, a lot of them are under so much makeup it's difficult to tell.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to be following this detective for most of the film as he tracks Boone and also works directly with Decker.
I would just love to see him explaining why he needs to speak to him. Just, I'm a psychiatrist. Mate, I don't think he needs a psychiatrist. Maybe a blood transfusion? Maybe a dermatologist?
Really explanation. So Boone is off to the vague location indicated by his freshly peeled friend, which happens to be a matte painting of a gigantic graveyard in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I believe they do have a lot of wild matte paintings growing naturally in Canada.
That would explain a lot of the scenery in this film.
Oh, yeah. The matte paintings in this they're nice, but they're so obviously matte paintings, they really do stand out. Especially if you're watching this in HD.
Yeah, I think it adds a nice layer of surreality.
Yeah,
the fantasy elements.
Very unreal.
Oh, totally. It's off-putting in a interesting way, I think. And the place he finds, that cemetery, just has those big cemetery gates with a giant M on them that he saw in his dreams.
Yeah, the area around the cemetery and the cemetery itself. This is what I was talking about earlier. It feels like someone took a big chunk of like Arizona and Louisiana and just plumped it into the middle of Calgary. Because you've got all this dead land all around the cemetery. And inside you've got all these ornate tombs and statues and everything. And it's genuinely, you're looking at it like, did you know what Canada was when you were writing this? Have you seen Canada?
In the book, they get a little bit into how it makes absolutely no sense that such a huge graveyard would be in the middle of nowhere. But they don't explain it, that's for sure.
I think they mentioned that there was an old mining town later on. But that's about as much of an explanation as you get for the reason why there is this gigantic ornate cemetery literally in the mountains.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like a mining town wouldn't go for such fancy tombstones and mausoleums and stuff.
No, especially considering there's maybe going to be like 150 people in those days at most.
Yeah, and they got huge carvings of angels, demons, monkeys.
Yeah, it's a bit all over the place.
Yep. This, of course, is a perfect place to take a nap. That's what Boone does.
Who hasn't enjoyed a nice nap in a graveyard? I mean, really.
Yep. He's a classic goth.
Well, he's got the jacket.
That's for sure. And he sleeps until sundown, at which point he is awakened by a pug. We get a pug, a jump scare.
Yeah, the dog was actually one of the crew had brought their dog with them. And
I thought you were going to say for a second that the dog was the crew. One of the key grips or something.
Yeah, the dog was actually the director of photography on the film. Had a very long career, including Hunt for Red October and Pelican Brief, surprisingly.
Ah. His big bulbous fish eyes give him incredible perspective.
Amazing depth of view.
Always hire a pug.
That may be the dumbest thing I've ever said.
Yep. And for some reason, the sound guy must have thought they said, it's a pig we're going to have in this movie because he squeals as he runs away.
Yeah, I didn't know if those were pig noises or if the poor thing just couldn't breathe.
Whatever it's doing it very loudly as it runs away to find its owner, who is your typical pug owner.
Yeah.
Just like a shaved head guy with tattoos and no shirt.
Just a weird guy just hanging out, being chill.
Mm-hmm. This is Onaka, who we'll see numerous times throughout the movie, and never has his name spoken aloud.
Yep. I think he has, like, I think he says like two sentences in the entire film. And yet, he's weirdly one of the most prominent characters in the second half of the film.
He is fairly omnipresent, and he does a lot of stuff without speaking.
Yep.
He honestly reminds me of Chester Bennington from Crank.
I thought you were going to say Chester Bennington in Saw.
Chester Bennington was in Saw?
Yeah! He was one of the Nazis in Saw 7.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
He was the guy who superglued to the car.
Yeah. God damn. he was a fantastic actor and fantastic vocalist.
He could certainly scream well.
Mm-hmm. So, Onaka somehow ratchets up the tension. He doesn't relieve it in any way. Boone gets more scared.
I mean, he's ran into a half-naked tattooed guy in a graveyard. That would creep me out.
He's got a pug. He has the best excuse.
What are you doing? And the pug's like, just taking my pet for a walk.
And as he's so distracted and worried about these clearly very dangerous pug and owner, he is snuck up on by Mac Tonight. Just a guy with a huge horn protruding from his head and a big pointy chin, so that his head is a big crescent moon.
Yeah, see, I always thought being moon-faced meant you had a very big, round, expressive face. This guy begs to differ.
Yep. Kinski says otherwise. He is never named in the movie, as are most characters never named in the movie.
Yeah. Kinski's actually played by a guy called Nicholas Vince. Again, another friend of Clive Barker's, along with the guy that plays Onaka, Simon Bamford. Interesting / weird thing. So, he played Chatterer in Hellraiser 1 and 2. But at the time, he was also working for Marvel's UK line of comics. And he wound up writing a number of stories for the Nightbreed and Hellraiser comic series. Apparently, he was a comic writer as like a side gig to being an actor. Guy's still in the industry, and as recently as 2017, wrote an origin story for the Chatterer in a book called The Hellraiser Anthology.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so he's a Cenobite, and the pug guy is also a Cenobite.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and they were friends with Clive Barker. I believe both of them were part of his theatre group, Dog Company, along with, what's his name? Doug Bradley, and a few others.
The third Cenobite who will appear in this film.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of crossover.
Yeah. So Kinski puts a knife to Boone's throat, but he's not the ultimate problem. Peliquin also shows up, who is a red guy with flesh dreadlocks.
Yeah, he reminds me of like a punk version of the Predator.
Totally, yeah, very strong Predator vibes off of him.
Not those kind of Predator vibes. They're just making that clear.
True. But he is in the graveyard preying upon random people who stumble in, like Boone.
Yeah, naturals, they call them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Boone insists that he belongs there because he's a murderer. He confesses his crimes, which means Kinski says you gotta take him to the leader, but Peliquin says, nah, this guy's innocent, I can smell innocence. You have committed no crime, therefore you're going to be eaten alive.
The actual scene in where he bites him in the book is way more sexual. Unnervingly so, the first time you read him, because... If I remember correctly, he takes a chunk out of his chest, including biting off his nipple.
Yeah, he bites his chest so deep that he, gets a nipple out of there.
Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, he says that he can almost see his heart beating.
Yeah, he's one breath away from literally inhaling his heart like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Which is what book Peliquin can do. Movie Peliquin transforms into the same guy, but with some blue in his dreadlocks.
The same guy, but meatier.
Very, very minimal transformation, unfortunately. A lot of the transformations are unimpressive. Peliquin's excuse for why he needs to eat Boone is, everything is true, God's an astronaut, Oz is over the rainbow.
Which is probably one of the best lines in the film, but the way it's delivered is because Peliquin has like a weird vocal effect over his dialogue, presumably to make him sound more monstrous, which kind of ruins the lyricism of the sentence.
A little bit, but the actor really brings it. This is one of the more compelling characters in the movie.
Yeah.
And he takes a big old bite out of Boone, which, of course, Boone realizes he's going to die unless he fights his way out, so he does. Gets the knife away from his throat somehow. Kinski's heart was really not into cutting his head off anyway.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they just sort of stumbled across him and they were like, oh shit, what do we do now?
Yep. Kinski actually fends off Peliquin so that he can't finish the job. Boone takes a quick breather to investigate his pulsating wound that it's now speaking to him in whispering voices.
Feed me, Seymour!
Yep. And then off he goes out of Midian with Peliquin right on his heels, but Peliquin will not go out of the gates because he's terrified of something natural lurking in the darkness.
So, let's think about this logically for a minute. What could be worse than a carnivorous monster that says he doesn't care about upholding his society's laws because he wants meat?
If you answered cops, you are a master of common sense.
Right on the money.
Yep. The police have Midian surrounded because Decker said that's where Boone is going because he beat that information out of the dying guy back in the hospital.
Yeah, poor guy did not survive the interrogation.
Yep. Tragic. I mean, he probably wasn't going to anyway.
I mean, odds were slim, but...
He'd peeled himself. Decker once again insists to the police that he go talk Boone down.
Yes.
He's the only one who can really talk to this murderer.
I don't know why they're listening to him. This guy does not have a good track record.
He's just so convincing.
He's wearing a suit. Clearly, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, he convinced the guy he committed to dozens of murders, so he's that good. Oh,
God. Is this another Reanimator thing where he's secretly hypnotizing everyone?
Honestly, there's a heavy implication of that.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep. The book even makes it more explicit that he's, like, hypnotically explaining the murders to him and getting him to recite them back. Yeah. As though he did them.
Yeah, remember he's doing that with Boone, but everyone else, it's like, no, he just has a really good haircut.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, Boone doesn't yet know that Decker is responsible, but it's pretty obvious to us at this point. He does know of his own innocence, and he professes it to Decker. Decker says, I believe you. He's got a gun! And he hits the deck. They go through so many blanks in this shot.
Seriously, they mention later that apparently Boone takes about 30 shots. But when they actually, the next scene, they perform an autopsy on him, they only pull out like maybe 7 bullets. So either most of those were through and throughs, or someone is padding their numbers.
Oh, there is one other person of color. It's one of the morticians.
Ah, yes.
Says, they really weren't taking any chances with this guy.
Yeah.
As he holds up a jacket that looks like it belongs to, what's his name from the Defenders? Luke Cage.
Ah!
Haven't seen that show in years. Anyway, there's obviously no gun when the detective comes over to check. But Decker says he was reaching into his jacket. And that's enough. They don't even bother to plant a gun. Boone is thoroughly dead.
I don't know.
Profoundly dead.
It was dark. He had a dark jacket on. Good enough for me. It's a small town. No one's going to investigate.
Next scene, Laurie identifies the body. Boone gets his autopsy. And Decker interviews Laurie for information on the serial killings.
Just quickly as well. Funny bit. The assistant, the other person of color in the movie, turns off the light above Boone while he's on the slab. Apparently, he asked Barker if he could, and I quote, play it gay.
Ah.
Barker, according to him, said, absolutely, who am I to say no?
Yeah, you're in the right place to do that.
Go off, Queen.
He does do like a little, like, kiss goodnight to the corpse almost.
Yeah. I think the appropriate term is he's a little swishy.
Yeah, that's fair to say. That's as close as you can get without saying slurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are interviewing Laurie when the vampire bite in Boone's chest starts writhing. And they hear a shattering of glass. When they go to investigate, the corpse is gone.
Guess he wasn't that dead after all?
No, someone stole the body. Don't be ridiculous.
Of course, in the middle of nowhere in a small town like Sheerneck, of course someone's fucking a corpse.
Yeah, he's a serial killer. He's got
Groupies.
enthusiasts who want to taxidermy his ass, put him in a true crime museum. Next, we see Lori packing for something, and while she's doing that, she glances over in the corner of her room. There's a naked Boone looking like Superman behind the curtain. And when she looks back, he's gone.
Such a weird scene.
It really is.
Like, genuinely, if someone can explain to me why she does that, why she sees... I have no idea.
I want to say they are condescending to an audience that they expected to not necessarily have the film savviness to understand that Boone is alive, so they're foreshadowing that.
That is a possibility, yeah. One of the things that Clive Barker did complain about was that they did dumb a lot of the scenes down.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
and this movie ultimately comes across as very dumb and over-explanatory in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you might be onto something there, I think.
Yeah, and they wanted that mass appeal. They wanted this to be the next Star Wars, so they assumed they were going to have the butts of everybody in America in those seats.
Oh, they assumed wrong.
They sure did. This movie is considered a flop, even though it made significantly more than its budget back.
Oh, yeah. It was a flop in a critical sense. I think at one point on Rotten Tomatoes, it had like a 45% score or something like that. It's gone up since, but it did not review well at the time, despite the fact that, Clive Barker was a big name at the time. Stephen King was singing his praises. Hellraiser 1 and 2 were considered absolute classics at release. So
it turns out Laurie was packing to go to Midian herself. Along the way, she has to stop for directions at a bar.
And this bar is the most Texan bar that has ever existed on film.
You're not wrong. It's incredibly folksy.
Again, throughout this film, we need to be asking ourselves the question, does Clive Barker know what Canada is?
They are going through a rodeo to get to Midian.
Yeah, there's a couple of shots of people wearing hats with rodeo days on them.
Yep. And big, bull horns as well. Very, very silly hats throughout this movie.
Yeah. Seriously, set it maybe 5,000 miles south? That more appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird setting. I don't know what he was thinking. When Laurie asks about Midian, she finds that it has become an extremely popular destination ever since that baby slasher Boone was gunned down there. It seems like media are going to investigate it and try and get the scoop.
Yeah.
So Laurie is deeply saddened by hearing that Boone's reputation is as a baby slasher. Goes to the bathroom to cry. Another lady asks her, is it men or money that has her so down? She says it's men. Asks if it's a man who left her. Oh, that's too bad. She says, no, even worse. Oh, a man who came back. Yep, that's the worst case scenario.
I mean, yes, just not in the way that she's expecting.
Yep. This random folksy lady in the bathroom has nailed the story without quite realizing all the supernatural elements.
Yep.
Which, bafflingly, we cut to Laurie sharing a beer with this new lady, Cheryl Ann, after having told her every element of the story so far about her boyfriend being a serial killer who was gunned down at a hidden graveyard in the middle of nowhere, and then his corpse disappearing.
I mean, I want to know, I want to be this woman's friend, because I've told people I've had depression, and they've been like, cool, need to excuse myself to the other side of the country.
Yeah, Cheryl Ann is either the most understanding person in the history of the world by a wide margin, or she has a huge immediate crush on Laurie.
That, or she is so drunk she cannot see straight.
It's even more awkward when Laurie says she's going to go to Midian, and Cheryl Ann says, yeah, let's go. We're going to Midian.
Fuck it, we rolling.
Yeah.
10 minutes with this woman and she's already ride or die.
Yep. This is one of the least relatable characters in film history, but she's super likable, so...
Oh yeah, she's great.
Whatever. Yeah, add her to the party. But Laurie had a long day. She's going off to her hotel room. Cheryl Ann's going to stick around at the bar, see if she can get laid.
Yes, that's it. That's her other defining character trait. Cheryl Ann is horny.
Big time.
She is at this bar primarily so she can get some dick. She says as much.
And if she were bi, that would make a lot of sense for why she's all over Laurie.
Yeah.
But She's a sophisticated man who buys her a drink. We don't see this man, though.
I'm sure he's just some regular roughneck or something who's wearing a suit, or who knows. Probably not important.
It seems like the kind of place where sophisticated men are a dime a dozen, that's for sure. It's a karmic reward for her extremely weird and improbable good deed of going to Midian.
Some would say imposing herself?
Yeah, really, inviting herself. But Laurie's happy to have the company. She just
wants a friend.
Yeah, I guess so.
Either of them, both of them.
And back in Midian, Boone is getting a crash course of what it's like to be there from Narcisse, the guy who killed himself back at the hospital.
Yeah, Narcisse is acting like he's been there for months at this point.
Yeah, he's like the old seasoned pro, and it makes no sense. Because Narcisse wasn't bitten by a Nightbreed, as far as we can tell?
We don't know.
How the fuck did he get there?
We find out basically nothing about Narcisse. What crimes he may have committed, what makes him a monster, as he would put it. But he's like, yeah, come on, kid, I'll show you the ropes.
He's a monster now because he has removed all the flesh from his head except for his face.
And he's
got a distinctive look. He actually has sort of a reptilian thing instead of an exposed muscle look.
Yeah, the I don't know what you'd call it, muscle, skin, the surface of his skull looks kind of infected, like it's a weird mottled green with almost like watermelon style lines all over it. It's really weird to look at.
Yep. But he is going to be our tour guide for Midian for a large part of this film.
Yep.
Thankfully, he is an important character. Because he's a delight. Honestly, if anyone steals this movie, it's Narcisse.
Oh, yeah. He is what passes for comic relief in this film, which says a lot about the film in general, I think.
It does kind of need it.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters are very dry. Boone is deadly serious about everything, and Decker's, we said, very dry line deliveries, so...
Yeah.
Narcisse is bringing the charisma. He brings Boone to a big chamber where all the humanoid Nightbreed are gathered up. Boone asks about the porcupine woman over in the corner and is told that her name is Shuni Sassy, and he's been dreaming about her. And she turns to Peliquin and says, I dreamt about this guy.
Yeah, just a shame Laurie's in the mix, or he could have been getting some spiky lovin'.
Yeah, totally. Like, they set up this romance, but Laurie is going to continue being a main character. I kind of want the version of the movie where Boone just goes full Nightbreed.
Yeah.
Happy in his new society.
Yeah. It feels like they're pairing them up immediately, only to just take that away. And
yeah,
I wonder if that was in another extended version, because Shuna Sassy weirdly gets a lot of screen time in this film.
Yeah. She's the single best designed monster.
100%.
If you're going to look up any image, look up that of Shuni Sassy.
Yeah.
She is cool looking.
Very cool. Made a lot of people in the 90s very uncomfortable with how hot they found her.
Even in the film, that happens.
Yeah.
But, we'll get to that much later on.
Oh, yeah.
This is where he meets Lylesburg, the leader of the Nightbreed.
Dirk Lylesburg, because apparently he's the only one who has a first name.
Yeah, he's like the normalest named guy, and the normalest looking guy in all of Nightbreeddom.
Yeah. He's played by Doug Bradley, and personally, he looks completely unrecognizable. Originally...
You pull those pins out of his head, he looks like a totally new guy.
Yeah. For the theatrical version, his voice was overdubbed by an uncredited actor. And for some reason, he was given a German accent. I've never been able to find out who the actor was, and I looked. Bradley himself, unsurprisingly, was very unhappy with this. But for the director's cut, he was able to return and re-record parts of his dialogue and speech for the film. Because a lot of the dialogue that they had, the recordings, were apparently just unusable. The footage was usable, but the audio recordings just weren't.
Yeah, that sucks that they would overdub him. He's quite good.
He's Doug Bradley. He's always good. Even in bad films, he's usually the best thing about them.
It's almost unfortunate that they cast him in this movie. In the book, Lylesburg is a nothing character. He gets like one line and appears maybe twice.
Yeah.
In the movie, he's played by Pinhead, so he has a vastly expanded role, but he can't interact with the plot in any way.
Yeah.
So he just sort of ineffectually appears every so often and blathers some vaguely philosophical nonsense and then is ignored completely by everybody.
Yeah,
he's a very pathetic character, quite honestly.
most of his scenes involve him showing up going, "Don't do that," and then walking away when everyone ignores him.
Yep. He sucks as a character,
Yeah.
which is too bad because his portrayal is excellent.
Yeah, but it's Doug Bradley, so I could listen to him talk for hours.
Totally. And he leads this very somber ritual of baptism in the blood of Baphomet to make Boone into an official Nightbreed, even though he's already an undead vampire.
This is just him getting his secret ring, decoder ring, and his club card.
Something like that. He rubs the boiling blood of Baphomet on the guy's chest, and it heals all of his bullet wounds, and now he's a Nightbreed, and everyone claps. Narcisse gives him a wink and an A-OK sign.
Yep.
The next day, Cheryl Ann orders a prairie oyster to get over her hangover after a sexy night with Curtis.
Yep, she makes very clear to point out that she got laid all night long.
Yep. So we're not going to get our lesbian romance. We're not going to get a gay romance between Decker and Boone. There's no gayness at all, unfortunately.
No, there's a lot of baiting, but not much payoff.
Yeah. It's all part of this being a queer movie, not a gay movie. I feel like it's intentional, but perhaps I'm just reading too much into it with a modern context.
Possibly. I mean, as I said, when I first saw this, the queer context just went completely over my head.
It's easy to miss after all the executive meddling pushed into the distant background.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. So we just jump right to Midian. There are no any difficulties finding it.
Back to the map painting.
Yep. Cheryl Ann insists on staying in the car. Came all this way just to stay in the car, where Curtis shows up for a romantic surprise. She's thrilled to see him.
Yeah,
But we are not. It's Decker. It's obviously Decker.
Yeah. Like, there was no possible way it could be anyone else. There's like 7 human characters in the entire film.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious if there was ever a time where people had poor enough understanding of cinematic language to have ever thought that, like, Boone was the killer and not Decker, or that Decker wasn't Curtis, or any of these misdirects actually worked.
Personally, I saw it all coming a mile off.
Totally.
And that was before...
Like, I just watched this a month ago, and I saw everything. Like,
yeah.
I didn't need to have this movie spoiled for me. It was all very obvious.
Yeah, everything is right there, even in the director's cut.
Yeah. Hard not to see it all coming. Maybe back in the day, people weren't as worried about spoilers, so they didn't think about it as hard.
Possibly.
Just were along for the ride. Or just the movie's very dumb and safe for a wide audience.
He's wearing a dark suit. That means he's the bad guy.
Pretty much. And inside Midian, Laura is wandering around. She finds a nasty little E.T.-looking dog creature.
Yeah, pause this and go look at this thing. It looks like Grumpy Cat if it was in the Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
This thing looks like a shaved Furby.
It's got some Gollum, it's got some E.T., it's a mess.
It looks like something from Jim Henson's drug-fueled fever dreams.
Yep. As soon as she stumbles upon it, someone in a mausoleum nearby says, "Bring it inside." And eventually she does.
Takes her about 10 minutes. This thing obviously lying suffering in the sun.
Would you want to touch it? I would not necessarily want to.
I mean, I'd maybe see if I could, like, pull a branch off of a tree and maybe, like, shove it in that way.
Yep. Roll it on home to the mausoleum.
So, like, excuse me, miss, have you got a tarp?
As soon as she gets it inside, it transforms over a series of cuts into a little girl who had apparently just raisined up in the sun.
Yeah.
Into a monster.
The little girl was actually played by a set of twins, and apparently that made it very easy for the cuts and the transitions, because as soon as they were finished with one girl, the other one would be ready, so they'd be like, okay, bring her in.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. I only just found out about the twin thing like an hour ago.
Yeah.
Gets around labor laws.
Yep. Thank you, John Landis.
Yeah. So Rachel is the one who beckoned Laurie to bring in Babette, is the child.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel is a Romani stereotype, and thankfully they never once say the G slur in this movie.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it, and it never happened. I'm very relieved.
And considering this was in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
honestly, I feel like Clive Barker knew better, It seems like he has some progressive, like, ahead of his time understandings throughout this movie.
Yeah, possibly. But, yeah, very surprising.
Yeah. As soon as she showed up on screen, I was like, oh, we're getting the G slur. We're getting it a lot.
Countdown in 3.
Yep. Lylesburg shows up at the mausoleum and says, you are owed a debt. Take the girl if you want her. Laurie actually says, no thanks. So everyone just leaves.
Hashtag child free.
Pretty much, yeah. And they leave the door open behind them. So Laurie descends the snake stairs to try and follow her. As soon as she gets to the bottom of the stairs, Pelican jump scares her.
Yeah.
And that's enough to get rid of her for good.
Yeah.
When she leaves the graveyard, there's only one thing she could possibly find. It's Cheryl Ann's corpse, with her hands pinned to a tree and a knife stuck in the base of her skull.
Yeah, it looks like she's actually being pinned to the tree by the knife.
Yeah. It is a very brutal murder.
And the way it's framed as well, it looks like something from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's very quiet. All you can hear is the sound of the wind and bugs, and it's a really effective shot when you see it.
Yeah. And Buttonface is obviously the culprit, shows up and puts a knife to Laurie's belly, and reveals himself to be Decker, pulls his mask off, just to taunt her, and then say that he's going to kill her in order to draw Boone out. Because he knows Boone is still alive, and he needs Boone to be the fall guy for his crimes.
Despite the fact that he saw him shot hundreds of times, allegedly, he is convinced that Boone is still amongst the living.
Yeah. Yeah, he's started to believe the Midian stuff because now there is textual evidence that it is true, and Boone will live forever in Midian. So he needs to kill Boone. Otherwise, he is going down for a whole bunch of serial killings.
Yep. And Cronenberg, the way he delivers this monologue almost, probably one of his, I don't know whether it's because I'm so used to seeing Cronenberg, the director, but when he has the mask on, his acting ability suddenly improves like 1,000-fold.
Yeah, serial killer Decker is much more compelling than Dr. Decker.
Yeah, 100%. It's bizarre.
Yeah. So it works. He chases Laurie into Midian. Boone promptly confronts him, despite being forbidden to confront him by Lylesburg. He just beats up the guards and escapes underground Midian. Heads up to the surface, stops Decker from murdering Laurie. Obviously, they get in a fight. Decker stabs him in the heart. Boone doesn't give a shit.
Almost literally says, I'm already dead, numbnuts. What's that going to do to me?
Yeah. And just as Boone's about to finish it, Narcisse shows up to fuck up everything. Narcisse has a score to settle because Decker manipulated him as he was dying.
Yep. A little more of the potential gay subtext there. When he shows up, he says, pointing at Decker, I want his balls and his eyes, unless you want them, of course. And then says, I was dying when you had your way with me. You made me give up my secrets when I was feeling particularly vulnerable. And it's really difficult to read that any other way.
Totally. And yeah, Narcisse is going to kill Decker, which Boone will not accept. It's him who has to kill Decker. So, Boone transforms for the first time by breathing out dry ice and having little, scars, swirly, pretty scars appear on his face. As a monster, he is very, very non-scary. He actually looks cool.
Yeah, he's, by comparison to some of the other breed that we'll see later on, he hit the fucking jackpot when it came to his mutation, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
It really, he's closer to one of the X-Men than any of the rest of the breed.
Yep. So that gives Decker the opportunity to escape the fact that Boone has to stop Narcisse. So he gives chase to Decker. While he's doing that, Narcisse continues to fuck things up by climbing on top of Laurie. Real creep move.
And then later gives...
Laurie screams in horror.
And then later gives the excuse, I was just keeping her warm.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, I believe that, you cold corpse.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun when Me Too meets Midian.
Yep. Narcisse faces no consequences for what he's done here.
None.
He convinces Boone that she's not going to like it when she wakes up and sees him as a scary monster with adorable swirls on his face. So he turns back into a human by breathing the dry ice smoke back in, and the scars disappear.
Yeah, that's a thing from the book where the transformations are always either accompanied by or triggered by some kind of mist or smoke that they breathe out. But in the movie, it really just looks like a cheap special effect.
And it is. And a pointless one at that.
Yep.
For defying Louwsberg's orders, Boone is sentenced to have an audience with Baphomet himself.
Yep. A couple of interesting things here. First off, in the commentary, this is the first time we really get to see Baphomet properly in the flesh, as it were. Apparently, he deliberately chose to have Baphomet's eyes glow green. Because according to him, it's the sort of thing you'd never see in any kind of quote-unquote high art movie, but you'd absolutely see it in a pop movie. So that was a deliberate stylistic choice. Other thing, weirdly, this is one of the weirdest things about possibly the film as a whole. Baphomet himself gets a shout out in Shin Megami Tensei 2 on the Super Nintendo.
This specific Baphomet?
This specific Baphomet. Baphomet, the goat demon, shows up throughout the series. But
that's where I know Baphomet from.
But in the second game, Baphomet is, rather than being the standard goat-headed demon, it's a tall humanoid figure with sort of tentacles coming out of its head. And it can only be a reference to this version because it's the only time it ever shows up in that form.
Yeah, totally.
Did not realize that until rewatching it, and I was like, holy shit, what the fuck?
Yeah, weird.
It's the most bizarre shout out I've ever seen in any game.
It sure is. I did not know that.
Yep.
Baphomet is of French origin, so Baphomet is the correct pronunciation, but I prefer Baphomet.
Yeah. I'd never actually heard anyone say Baphomet up until watching this. So for years, I always thought it was pronounced Baphomet.
Yeah. The audiobook, which was released concurrently with the film as a tie-in, does say Baphomet. So no one can get it straight. I'm going to continue saying Baphomet in my daily life, but throughout this film discussion, it's Baphomet.
Yeah, Baphomet is this character in particular.
Yes, totally. The hard T is for titties, which this Baphomet does not have.
No, he's missing most of his torso.
That's for sure. But it looks like he never had them. Baphomet is a very popular character among trans people because it depicts a male figure with female breasts and a very suggestive staff of Hermes at the crotch.
Yeah, it's, again, not subtle.
Mm-hmm. I based my persona off of Baphomet because I guess I'm just spilling all the beans today. Wasn't even trans when I did that.
I feel like I should be, spilling some secrets myself just to make things fair and equal. I put a lot of mayonnaise in my food. I'm sorry. I'm trying to work through that.
All right. This podcast is over.
Understandable. Have a good day.
Classic mayonnaise breakup.
It was only ever a matter of time.
So while Boone is meeting Baphomet, Decker stops by a rundown gas station operated by a hillbilly stereotype for some reason, because again, this is Texas.
Yep. Where in the fuck is this movie set? Everywhere?
Texarkana, Spain, Hawaii.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain I saw someone from Ohio over there, and fuck it, Alaska, why not?
Yeah. If they put in some main characters, Stephen King would have been happy to show up.
I mean, they've got the mountains for it.
Yeah. They're lost. They could have had David Cronenberg and Stephen King in the same movie.
The movie could have flopped twice as hard.
Yeah, imagine the ego explosion that would have been.
And this was in the 90s, so Stephen King would have been fiending for cocaine the entire time.
At the gas station, Decker just wants to call the cops on Midian. That's how he solves like half his problems. The other half he solves by stabbing them.
Yep. And
the hillbilly obliges and then locks the door behind Decker after he leaves. He's clearly a bit creeped out by this dude.
I mean, I can't blame him. This is every stereotype of the 80s in the form of one human being walking into your weird home.
Yeah, Decker is a stereotype of a serial killer.
Yeah, and also I feel like for me, this is the point where I realized that Decker's basically a metaphor for crushing conformity. Because you've got this harmless, weird guy who talks to a taxidermy dog and has a nice little house full of weird tchotchkes and has Christmas lights up everywhere.
He is very odd, yeah. He has an entire room with dolls hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, he's just this little weird guy who's doing his own thing. And then in comes, as I said, the avatar of the 80s. And says, okay, you're helping me, you're doing what I say. So, yeah, it's crushing conformity versus commoner garden, weird, but kind of not particularly dangerous, just harmless, really. He's just a kooky old man.
Yes, the hillbilly is very friendly and accommodating. He's distrusting of the guy who is very dangerous.
And he's right to
but
do
still
so.
wants to be folksy and helpful with him, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good read of it.
And speaking of Twin Peaks, as we were earlier, this the one scene, well, this and another scene just coming up, really feels like Mark Frost's influence, because it feels very season 1 Twin Peaksy.
Yeah, I can see that.
The old man kind of reminds me of Ed, who runs the gas station, Everett McGill. And
yeah,
it feels like this is the one Twin Peaks scene that managed to sneak in.
Yep. So after locking the front door, he goes to lock the back door, but sees it's already open, and that means Buttonface is there.
And
just like the family earlier.
And he cuts the head off his taxidermy dog.
Yep. He has living dogs outside, but he talks to the taxidermy dog because he's a weirdo.
Again, harmless, but you're like, that's okay.
Yep.
You do you, buddy.
I mean, I would sooner be friends with the weirdo than the Patrick Bateman motherfucker.
Well, yeah, that's because you've got something approximating a soul.
Yep. Meanwhile, Laurie wakes up in a coffin inside a room where all the walls are completely covered in skulls.
Yeah, it looks like one of the...
apparently Boone thought this would be the happiest place for her to wake up.
But honey, you like the Paris catacombs. Is what I assume he was thinking.
Something like that. Thankfully, Rachel is there to be like a voice of sanity in this nightmare, the haunted house.
Yeah, and the way that she's framed by all the skulls, it takes you a second or two to realize that she's standing there. It's actually a really nice shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Got Babette with her, which further disarms Laurie. And she explains what the Nightbreed are, which is freaks who've been forced underground, their own little species of shapeshifters with superpowers and shit. And long ago they roamed the earth freely, but humans envied them. And what they envy...
They destroy.
Thank you.
Yeah, she kind of hints the breed are essentially the basis for vampires and werewolves and so on. Because she says, you call us monsters, but when you dream, you dream of flying and changing and living without death. Which, yeah, that's pretty much all the major monster myths right there.
Yeah. And she sends Babette over to mind meld with Laurie to show her, like, firsthand what happened to the Nightbreed. The KKK showed up and burned them all and decapitated them all and hooked them all up to torture machines.
I absolutely love this sequence.
Oh, it's an amazing sequence.
Yeah, it's
Pyramid Head is there, and
it's when you read stuff like the Scarlet Gospels, which was the sort of the follow up or send off to the Hellraiser mythos, you kind of get the impression that this is the idea of hell that Clive Barker has. It's basically like an endless wasteland with fire and tape strewn everywhere, and there's nothing but pain and cruelty without any point to it whatsoever. Like you can see like the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, there's hints of World War II in there, and it's in a vacuum, it is one of the most jarring sequences in the film, and I absolutely love it to bits.
Yeah, it's very, very intense. It gives you a little bit of lore on the Nightbreed as well, that they are trying all these different methods of execution because Nightbreed all die in different ways.
Yep.
Like one of the decapitated heads is still moving around because it has not been killed, because decapitation doesn't kill some of them.
Yep.
And that obviously gets Laurie on their side. She was already pretty invested in the plights of Babette and Rachel specifically, but now she wants the best for the Nightbreed in general.
And to think all it took was brainwashing.
In the book, mind melding with Babette is a huge part of the story. And Laurie never actually goes into Midian herself. She only sees Midian through Babette's eyes.
Yeah, there's also...
And that's how she gains her empathy.
There's also the implication that the mind meld itself is a lot more traumatic for her, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like, she's actually
feeling, and when...
Yeah.
When Laurie's in danger and getting hunted by Decker, it is Babette who tells Boone about it because of the mind meld. Yep. They just made it into a one-shot in this movie.
Yeah. Again, Babette is... I wouldn't say she's wasted, but her significance in the film is incredibly rolled back from the book.
Oh, yeah. Big time. And they've made an intentional parallel here between the KKK exterminators of the Nightbreed and the next scene where we're back at the gas station with Buttonface and the Hillbilly. Hillbilly being tied to the chair with Christmas lights.
Yeah. And Decker is being incredibly petty in his interrogation here.
Yeah. He's like poking him in the knee to get information with a knife.
Literally, he's going, hey, wake up, tell me. Hey, old man.
Yeah, the Hillbilly's just got a few slashes on his face, like very superficial. He's not really hurt. And he doesn't get hurt in the scene. There's no torture happening. It's just, pettiness and poking.
Yeah, he's just been roughed up a little bit, and then he's like, come on, tell me about the breed.
Yeah, the real torture is demanding to know what the Nightbreed are and how to get them, and it's specifically how to kill them, which the Hillbilly does know a little bit about because he wanted to be a Nightbreed but was rejected.
Again, harmless weird man who just wants to be special.
Yep. He asked if Buttonface wanted to be a Nightbreed as well and was rejected, and that's why he's so mad. But no, Buttonface kills breeders.
Yes.
That's why he's been slaughtering families.
Yep. He has a very specific speech here where he says, I've cleaned up a lot of breeders, families like cesspools, filth making filth making filth. And for anyone who's unaware, breeders is a very specific term to use.
It's super loaded, yeah.
It is essentially a slur, for lack of a better term, used by some members of the LGBTQ community to describe heterosexual couples. And the use of it here has to be deliberate. There's no two ways.
And in the last scene, they set up that it's not just a queer metaphor, but it is a colonialism metaphor that the Nightbreed represent.
Yeah.
There's no rejection of straightness in this community. That's for sure.
Yeah, the breed accept you because or despite who you are, essentially.
Yeah, there's an explicit acceptance of queerness, but there's also an acceptance of basically everything that is outside of the norms of society.
Yeah, otherness in all its forms, and Decker is in every single way the polar opposite of that.
Yeah, living conformity. He also believes himself to be death. And insists that the Hillbilly call him that. But before the Hillbilly can, he stabs him in the heart. So that's it for the Hillbilly.
Yeah, he's stabbing the guy and says, say I'm death. And when he doesn't, he stabs him. And then almost like with a pout says, all right, don't say it then.
Yep.
It's a weird comedy moment in all this.
It is. It's another one of those disturbing scenes, as anyone with Buttonface is. Yep. And in the book, Buttonface is an actual separate character from Decker, which is weird.
He has conversations with his mask, who he believes is almost like almost like a god to him.
Yeah.
At the very least, like an incarnation of death that's chosen him for his host.
Yep. And it demands murders on a frequent basis.
Yeah, it demands sacrifices.
Yeah. Sometimes Decker doesn't want to kill, but Buttonface is in his bag somewhere saying, nah, do it.
Yeah, and
it's not.
There's a weird sexual component to it as well.
Totally. So, back in Midian, Laurie has been convinced to, she wants to go see Boone, naturally. That's what she always wants to do. Lylesburg obviously forbids it, stands in her way for a second or two, and she just walks by.
Yep, you could do a drinking game with the number of times Lylesburg says, don't do this, and people just go and do it anyway.
Yep, he is the most ineffectual of leaders. Onaka briefly runs in front of the doorway and tries to block it from Laurie's entrance. Yep. She literally says, excuse me, and walks through anyway.
And this next section is just Laurie wandering around.
The best part of the movie.
Whatever. This next part is Laurie essentially just wandering around Midian. looking at everyone.
Midian, it turns out, is this giant underground cavern.
It's a maze.
All connected with rope bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like something out of Temple of Doom. The final sections in the mine. But she's going around looking for Boone, staring in the windows at all these weird creatures. But, like, just imagine it from the breed's perspective. You're just sitting there, you know, hanging out with your friends, feeding your eels, and this weird woman comes in and gawks at you for 10 minutes. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're going about their average day in society. They are eating corpses, one of them is, a little stop-motion creature.
Yep.
There's also a stop-motion centaur.
Yeah, they were really disappointed with the stop-motion effects in this. According to Clive Barker, they were too late for good stop-motion, but too early for bad CGI. So they were left with a kind of herky-jerky half measure.
Yeah, it has a Star Wars Special Edition vibe to it, unfortunately. But I appreciate that they went for it.
There were a couple of other creatures which were featured in publicity photos, which never actually made it into the film, unfortunately, including one who was a giant, naked, headless body, but he had a fanged mouth right at his crotch.
Huh. Yeah, that could be distracting in a lot of ways.
It looked a bit silly. Just imagine one of the pinky demons from Doom, but without the face and just with a giant fanged maw round about groin level.
Yeah, the face moved about a foot down.
Yeah, it looked very silly.
Yep. You mentioned the guy feeding the leeches. This is a big, fat, pale guy who bites his own thumb and then bleeds into the leech tank. He's there with his friend who looks like Howie Mandel in Little Monsters. A reference for almost nobody.
I understood Howie Mandel and Little Monsters, but I have not seen either of those enough to combine the two. And
you're not missing much.
Yeah.
It's a bad, obscure Fred Savage movie.
Most of them were. And these two guys are Leroy Gom, who's the fat guy, and Devil Lude, Lude. And there's a...
Is his name literally Devil?
Yeah.
He looks like Satan, so that's appropriate.
If I remember correctly, he is actually credited as Devil Lude in the closing credits. And the Nightbreed Chronicles, which is sort of like a half art book, half photo book about the film. It's got bits of backstory on basically every character in the film. And Lude starts off, asked his father's name, Lude will say, Papa. Ask again if perhaps a devil had a hand in his creation, and he'll say, yes, and a dick too. Just so many weird bits of lore on all the various characters and creatures.
Yeah, I imagine it goes pretty deep.
Fairly so, yeah.
Yeah, so Satan just lives here in Midian.
Yep. And he's hanging out with his boyfriend, because these two guys are never seen apart.
Seriously, yeah, they are almost certainly meant to be a couple. One of them, the fat guy, he reaches for Lori just as she leaves to go see Boone. She actually spots Boone off in the distance and heads that way. He misses grabbing Lori and says, there goes the neighborhood, in a real lispy little voice.
Yeah, which is so out of place for the rest of the film.
It's the only time he reads any of his lines with a lisp.
Yeah.
But it's clearly very important that it establishes Lori as gentrifying this marginalized neighborhood.
Yep. As I said, this entire sequence is her gawking at the freaks as they're just living their normal lives.
Mm-hmm. She is a big-time Karen right now.
Oh, yeah. This scene starts off with her saying, I want to speak to your god.
Yep.
she is going beyond Karen. She wants to speak to the final manager.
But Lori continues on her search, not even aware of almost getting grabbed. And she gets into the real depths of Midian, where the monsters are like human barnacles and the guy from Basket Case all over the place.
One guy who is literally just a pile of meat wobbling back and forth.
Yep. Just a lump with a head on it.
And yes, he does have a backstory.
Of course. She keeps following the guy in the white shirt that she spotted and comes across Peliquin, who taunts her and says, I'll make you a Nightbreed if you want. At this point, she discovers the guy with the white shirt was not Boone.
Yeah.
It was just some dude in a pompadour.
Yeah, he looks like... he's got a weird greaser look to him, and then he turns around and he looks like Archie from the Archie comics if he was cosplaying Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. He has cheetah spots all over his face.
He's like a cat from one of the weirder parts of Chernobyl.
Yep. Peliquin scares Lori by stealing the butterfly pin off of her sweater and pinning it to his own flesh.
And there's a weird moment where you half expect Peliquin to say to Laurie, "Oh, by the way, he's our boyfriend now."
Pretty much. She is distracted momentarily, which is obviously time for us to be distracted by Decker telling the cops of Boone's location and latest victim. Boone is apparently still alive and out there killing people. He murdered a hillbilly off near Sheerneck just the other day.
He's been a busy, busy boy.
Decker insists that there's a secret society under Midian and the cops buy it.
Yeah, it's let's not go into the fact that this place has been in existence for, I think, something like 200 years. Because it was an old mining town. And they're like, clearly we've never been up to the creepy graveyard in the middle of the mountains. Well, we'll take everything you say at face value.
Yep. Boone's over there, and he's there with a cult of serial killers, and we need to go stop them all, or more people will die. Decker insists, and he intends to fulfill that promise himself, although the cops don't yet realize it.
Yeah, no way in hell they're not laughing him out and telling him to get back over the border.
He's proven himself right once or twice, so that's enough for the cops, I guess. Honestly, at this point, it was straining my...
credulity?
My buy-in, yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's plot important. That Decker never be suspicious.
Yeah, despite being the creepiest motherfucker in Canada.
Yeah, he's creepy in the generic, normal, healthy white guy way, so...
fair point.
Like you said, he gets away with it.
To have the confidence of a mediocre white serial killer.
Laurie, at this point, stumbles into Narcisse, who is dancing with a corpse. An old, desiccated corpse from the mausoleum.
Talking to it like it's his wife.
Yep. Giving it the occasional smooch for emphasis. He says, you can't go any further. At the third or fourth time Laurie's heard that.
Yep.
But this time he says it's because there are berserkers ahead. You don't want to mess with those guys. But she does. And she's thoroughly threatened by Narcisse. Can't imagine why. Couldn't have anything to do with the way he climbed on top of her about an hour ago.
And just after she leaves, or just before, he then flirts with Onaka.
Yeah, Onaka stumbles by. He points out his sexy-ass tattoos. Narcisse is having the time of his life. He's a delight to watch on screen.
Yeah. It's just kind of telling the time frame that this was filmed in. Because with Onaka, all you really needed to be weird is tattoos and a nipple piercing. Mm-hmm. He is genuinely the most quote-unquote normal-looking member of the cast outside of Boone.
Yeah. Boone and him are the only ones who pass as human.
Yeah. And as I said, all his weirdness is he wears a garland of birds' heads, which is kind of weird. Has nipple tattoos, has one of his nipples pierced, and owns a pug.
Yep. And he fits right in with the other Nightbreed. He is
100%
part of their society. Yeah.
You never
He's
doubt
almost like the right-hand man of Lylesburg.
Yeah, you never doubt for a minute that he is one of the Nightbreed. It's bizarre.
Totally. Never even transforms or anything. He's just who he is, and everyone's happy with it.
Now, technically he does, but...
Well, we're getting to that very soon.
Oh, yeah.
He saves Laurie from the berserkers after they grab her through a cage. They reach through the bars and grab her, and he lures them away, so she is free. Then he leads her to the Chamber of Baphomet, right into Boone's loving arms.
And Laurie has a reaction.
Well, I mean, she looks at Baphomet, and Boone insists that she does not. So they just leave.
Yeah.
Apparently, this makes Boone the first person to have an audience with Baphomet and survive. Which seems like an awkward way to run your society.
Yeah, like, you literally have a direct line to your god, and you can't talk to him without him killing someone? Seems like an oversight.
Yeah. And she leads Boone back to the surface, accompanied by Onaka. As soon as they're on the surface, Onaka locks the door behind them. They are disbarred from Midian.
But Laurie's okay with that, because she says, you belong with me, no one needs you but me. So there is no argument on Boone's part here. It's just, you are leaving your weird friends behind and going back to a nice, cozy life of heteronormality.
Yep, definitely. Their reunion begins to show Laurie's toxic obsession with this relationship.
Yeah, this scene in particular, it suddenly occurred to me that, yeah, she's actually really quite controlling.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
The first, I want to say the first third or so, I would say is aggressively heterosexual. And I say that as a straight guy.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't until the breed actually show up, and, you know, as we've basically posited, our thesis for this is the breed are a found family of sorts.
Yeah.
And then she comes back in the scene and is like, no, bad, back to Straight Town.
Yeah, unfind that family, mister.
Yeah, put them back where you left them, so help me.
Yep, you're going back to society. And in society, they are going to the Sweetgrass Inn. And at the Sweetgrass Inn, the receptionist at the counter is sloppily eating a big, nasty pastry covered in cream. She drops it on the floor and then starts both cleaning and eating it off of the floor.
Just enjoying her floor pie. It's like a scene from Friends, I swear.
While she's doing this, she spots a well-dressed man approaching and wonders if it's another employee there at the motel. As she stands up, she finds a severed head on the guest book. And while she's screaming about that, she backs into the room behind her, and Buttonface is somehow teleported behind her so as to grab her from behind and give her a level 2 stealth kill.
Yeah.
I don't know why they gave Buttonface superpowers very briefly. It kind of spoils it.
Yeah. But, the other interesting thing is that, like, Decker is getting really sloppy with his kills now. And, like, he's gone from just slice to decapitating someone and then just killing people out in the open. And presumably, my take on it, at least, is that he's basically going, well, Boone's out there, and we now know that Boone is a legit for-realsies monster. I can indulge my my killing streak as much as I want, and no one's going to ask 2 questions about it.
Yeah. This is a major plot point in the novel specifically.
Yeah.
Where he has to convince the cops now that dead guy is still serial killing.
Yeah, that's right.
So he goes to the hotel room that Laurie's been staying at, and he kills everybody. 16 people slaughtered in a matter of hours. Then he waits for Boone to show up and calls the cops on him.
Like a coward.
Inside the hotel, Laurie notices that there's a hole punched in her room, and through it she spots a bunch of corpses of various rodeo enthusiasts.
What's the opposite of a glory hole? This.
Yep, that's exactly what they find. Guys in their hats with horns on them.
Yeah, this
thoroughly murdered.
This is the Rodeo Days group. Because apparently they have rodeos in Canada. I don't know enough about Canadian life. I will be upfront
Turns out
about
they
it.
do. Yep. Boone, upon seeing all these corpses, transforms uncontrollably and drinks some of their blood.
Yeah, he gets super hangry at this moment.
They never really explicitly spell it out. The Nightbreed accept murderers into their kind because Nightbreed have to eat corpses to live. They're cannibals.
Yeah.
Obligate cannibals.
Again, it's something that's kind of hinted at in the movie, but if you haven't read the book, then you just kind of assume that he's gone psycho mode for no reason. Like, maybe Decker is actually right about him being a wannabe serial killer, essentially.
It's definitely awkward in the film without any explanation.
Yeah, without the wider context, it does lose something.
Totally. Boone is arrested because they catch him drinking blood in a house full of corpses.
Yep.
So they take him to prison, where Captain Eigerman of the Sheerneck Police puts on leather gloves and tortures him with a blackjack, while the cops hold him and laugh.
This bit is really uncomfortable.
It really, really is.
Because the film was it was filmed in 1988-89. It was held back, I think, like 6-8 months, and then released in 1990. It had been finished for ages. And there's really, really clear parallels to a lot of the more famous cases of police brutality. Like, we're still a couple of years out from the Rodney King event. And yet it manages to channel all of them perfectly.
Yeah, that is another way that I think Clive Barker was definitely aware of the scene, which most white British people certainly were not.
Oh, no.
And was working it into the film.
Yeah. Personally, it wasn't until, as I said, Rodney King, for me at least, and I would assume quite a lot of my fellow countrymen, we're like, oh, right, police bad. Didn't know that one.
Yeah. Yep. Somehow Clive Barker do it, and we appreciate that for him.
I think he was born in Liverpool, but he did spend quite a lot of time after he became famous going back and forth between the UK and America. So I assume he picked up a lot of that, either watching TV or discussing with other LGBTQ folk.
Yeah, very well could be. Because like we said, he's in the closet at this point in history, but it seems like he understands his own identity and is simply just not saying it to straight public that might be worried about an AIDS crisis or two.
Yeah, I mean, 1990 was still kind of dicey at that point in time.
That's for sure.
And, he was primarily seen as a British writer. Probably his thinking at that point, and I'm not going to say incorrectly, was, if I come out, it is complete career suicide for me. Because a lot of, in 90s UK, was very not progressive, to put it politely. Outright homophobic.
Yeah, he could have been the next George Michael.
Yeah. Outright homophobic and hateful is probably a more accurate way of putting it. But yeah, I can imagine
the way British people think of trans people today is about what they thought of gay people at the time.
One for one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This entire scene was observed by a priest who was also in the local jail. And he was so stressed out by listening to the torture that he dug his own fingernails into his palm and drew blood.
Yep. The local preacher is also an alcoholic for bonus points.
Yep. That's all just to set up a character that is not important but was important in the novel. And they can't stand to cut anything from the novel just to make this movie better paced.
Really?
So the preacher's here. Eigerman, who is fresh off of his torture, has to go to a press conference, but is convinced to send a squad off to Midian by Decker, because Decker is really beating that drum.
Yep.
He wants to get Midian exterminated, and no one believes that there's anyone in Midian except for the detective that he's been talking to the entire movie.
Yeah, there's almost a feeling of, well, fine, if it'll keep you off my back, but maybe if there's something there, we'll have something fun to do this weekend.
So Eigerman goes to his press conference, a squad goes off to Midian, and a doctor goes to Boone's cell so as to determine medically that he was not tortured. That is why they use the blackjack specifically, is it doesn't leave marks.
They are engineering plausible deniability here.
Yep.
Again, remember, this is still a couple of years away from Rodney King.
This is a cop doctor, of course, so he hops right to it, business as usual. Puts a stethoscope to Boone's chest. No heartbeat. Guy's dead.
Literally, he's like, what the fuck is this? Is this some kind of sick joke?
Doctor runs out of there terrified and tells the cop. The cop points a gun at Boone and slowly backs out of the room. So he has to go tell Eigerman in the middle of his extremely condescending press conference about this latest development. Yeah, he just insults all the reporters and then calls an end to the press conference to go ask Decker, what the fuck's going on with the dead guy in my cell?
Hello, yes, you brought a zombie into my precinct. Kindly explain?
Yeah, he is very, very unhappy with this turn of events. So then we check in with the cops who went over to Midian themselves. They are putting on a show, talking to each other, saying, yeah, I guess we checked everywhere and there's no one here. We'll just be leaving. And then they kick down the door of a mausoleum and grab Onaka off guard.
Gonna go home. I gotcha!
Yep.
Literally, that's what happens.
Seriously is. This film has a lot of tropes and a lot of dialogue that is just like future cliches.
Silly is what it is.
Yeah. There goes the neighborhood. You get the big guy. Literal lines in the movie.
In the, I can't remember. I don't think it's in the director's cut, but in the theatrical cut, when Laurie runs away from Pelican, when she said Pelican, Pelican, when she's running around Midian, he literally shouts, "Y'all come back now, you hear?" And I kind of wish they'd kept that line because it's hilarious.
There's no denominator too low that Nightbreed won't go there.
Nope.
It's kind of charming in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Does give the movie an incredibly weird tone, especially as we enter the Onaka torture scene.
Oh, this scene.
So Onaka's been the most lovable character in the movie so far. He said almost nothing, but he's been helpful to everybody. He's just a nice little sprightly guy.
Yeah, he's
who has a pug. He has a pug, for God's sake.
In the Nightbreed Chronicles, he's explicitly described as the 100-year-old boy. At all of his appearances, he's always got this sort of like childlike air to him. And then what happens?
The cops, as soon as they get arm around his neck, one of them rips his nipple ring out, and then they drag him outside with a gun to his head and force him onto his knees. Like 6 cops to one guy.
Yeah. Again, this scene is so loaded with subtext.
Oh, God, yeah. The moment he's in the sunlight, he starts screaming, and you can see smoke coming off of his body, which does not stop the police from kicking him, stomping him, punching him, all with a gun to his head. He doesn't seem to mind the beating as much as the burning. He's burning alive in the sunlight. As he is being brutalized, he begins to have wounds open on his flesh, visible burns opening up, and he reaches out to the black detective and is denied any help.
Yeah.
All he does is pull his foot away and continue watching the brutality.
Yeah, he looks disgusted. Not by what's happening, but by Onaka himself.
Yep. Eventually, the beatings cease only because all of the cops are horrified as the supernatural death falls out before them.
Yeah. Onaka goes up like 4 pounds of Semtex. He literally explodes by the light of the sun.
Bursts into a big cloud of dust with some small meaty chunks inside.
I think you can kind of see half of an arm at one point.
Yep. His pug looks back once and then runs off. The detective, who we've been following this whole movie and has been pretty reasonable, looks up at the sun and says, the sun did it. The sun kills these guys. And the guy he's talking to says, we have the greatest weapon of all above our heads. The detective just gives a Grinch-ass grin.
So
he is thrilled for some more police brutality, that's for sure.
Yeah, this scene is loaded. Like, first off, as I said, Onaka is explicitly described in the book as childlike. So, best case scenario, this is the cops killing a kid. Additionally, Onaka has some very sort of effeminate airs to him.
Yeah, he definitely dresses in the style of gay culture at the time.
Yeah.
He would have fit right in a pride parade.
Yeah. So you can also look at it as a good old-fashioned queer bashing at the time. Additionally, watching films like this, you expect the black cop to be on the side of the... Like, this is something that happens in so many movies, and they subvert it because he just goes, ew, and backs away when this is someone who otherwise looks completely normal. Reaches out to him for help.
Actively sympathetic this whole time.
Yeah.
The black cop has actually been reliable and reasonable thus far.
And
it's been Eigerman who's been the fascist.
Yeah, and I genuinely feel like that was intentional.
I'd say certainly.
Yeah, of like, essentially you can't trust anyone outside your own circle, but also, almost a feeling of don't take anyone at face value. Just because he comes across as someone who is incredibly sympathetic throughout the film doesn't mean he won't turn on you the second he sees your true colors.
Yeah.
And
especially a commentary on cops who have basically sold their soul to be a part of a violent, oppressive system.
Yeah, it's also saying there is, there might be good cops, but there's no such thing as a good cop.
Yeah. I'm 100% sure that Barker was saying ACAB with this scene.
100%. I can imagine my personal feeling is that with this scene, I feel like he was getting a lot off of his chest, one way or another. Because
totally.
It is, as I said, it is just so heavily coded in so many different ways. And the entire sequence, rather than being framed as, like the music in particular, rather than being horrifying, frames the whole thing as a tragedy. This is a horrible loss that's occurring, rather than look at the freak blow up. Even in the theatrical cut, it's framed that way, which, to be honest, I found really surprising. I thought they would have gone with the full horror movie music, but nope. Exactly the same as it's shown in the director's cut.
Yeah, the executives, by this point in the film, were starting to be like, careful, Barker. You're going to start to make the cops look like bad guys and the monsters look like good guys.
Which, given what happens...
Which Barker literally said, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, that's something that's stuck in his craw for 30 years. He still gets pissed off at that. Apparently, one of the other executives couldn't follow the plot because the cops were the bad guys and the monsters seemed like they weren't, and that doesn't seem right in my brain.
Yeah, you really don't get this kind of narrative. So while this horrific scene of police brutality was playing out, Narcisse, who does not explode in sunlight because every Nightbreed has different weaknesses, he made his way to a run-down car that I guess the Nightbreed own and firebombed the cop car.
And the crowd lets out a cheer.
Hell yeah. While he and Rachel squeal off into the distance.
Yeah, Rachel is part of this sort of ragtag rescue team. And it's difficult to tell. My own personal feeling is that she's realized, oh shit, what have I done? And she's looking to maybe try and redeem herself by springing Boone.
They actually show later on that a lot of the Nightbreed aren't aware of the direness of the situation, but Rachel is before even like the cops get involved.
Yeah,
she's kind of the woke Nightbreed.
She's got her ear to the ground.
Yeah. So they are heading off to the police station. Meanwhile, Eigerman is sending another squad to pick up the squad that just had their car destroyed.
Nothing wrong with this problem that another wave of cops can't solve.
Yep, throw more pigs at it. And this does prove that Midian is dangerous, and now they've committed a crime, so as to be deserving of what's about to happen to them.
Yeah, damaging police brutality. Let's nuke the bastards.
Yep. Eigerman also conscripts the priest, grabs him by the lapels, and says, "You're coming with us. We are going to have God on our side." And he conscripts the local militias. Oof. Gets the armed hillbillies in their trucks. The rodeo enthusiasts are ready to kill some minorities.
Yeah. Turns out that Eigerman appears to be part of a militia called the Sons of the Free. And they have access to every gun in creation.
Yeah, I mean, the police armory is run by this nerd who, they come in and he describes every single gun he's handing out and how much it is similar to a dick.
Yeah. and at one point, he gets sexually aroused by a garrote. Now,
yeah.
2 questions. 1, how much of an amosexual do you need to be to get aroused by garrotes? And 2, and arguably the more pressing one, why do they have garrotes? Why?
There's no real excuse, but
I just love to know where they got that from, let alone why they have it.
Yeah, they had it so that this guy could kiss it. He brought it from home. It was probably in his pocket all day long, and he's just been dying for a chance to use it.
Sweaty.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah.
The moment that the cops and the militia depart the police station is the moment that Narcisse and Rachel arrive. Obviously, Eigerman left 2 cops, 3, I think, to defend the precinct, make sure Boone does not escape, knowing as they do that Boone is pretty strong.
Yeah, I think it's 3, yeah.
Yeah. So Narcisse calls one over to the door by tapping on it. Then he punches through the door and kills that guy.
Fair.
Yep. That sets the entire precinct on lockdown. Steel shutters close off the entirety of the cells. They are definitely going to keep Boone's from escaping. That's for sure.
Really would be a shame if any of them could, assume other forms or transform in any way. Hey, what's that smoke over there?
Yes, it turns out Mist could pass, and Rachel becomes Mist. Rolls right on through the keyhole, which apparently the steel shutters have. The cop shoots at the Mist and shoots another cop in the head in the process.
These guys are the fucking keystone cops of militias.
Yep. Then Rachel reforms. Her clothes did not make it through the keyhole, so she's naked. And that immediately seduces the one remaining cop.
Even better than that, the way the mist parts so you can see her, the mist literally reveals her boobs first.
Yep.
I don't know if that was accidental or not, but it just seems a little too on the nose.
Happy accident, I guess.
Fuck it, we'll put it in.
And then Laurie is escorted to Boone's cell, where immediately Boone gets so horny that he transforms.
In the book, This is also important, question mark, to the plot. Because as he transforms, this is also the first time in the course of the book they're able to successfully have sex.
Yeah. It says, becoming a Nightbreed made Boone into a lover. And of course they choose now to fuck it out.
Yeah, Narcisse is literally like, can't you two get a room?
Yeah, he's like 5 feet away throughout the entire sex scene, which is a full chapter of the book.
Yeah, it's gratuitous.
It is very explicit. Thankfully, in this scene, Narcisse says, no time for love. And we got to get back to Midian.
Which I almost feel was an Indiana Jones reference.
Could be, given Narcisse's hat in this scene.
Yep.
He put on a cowboy hat at one point.
Yeah.
I do feel like I got to give credit to Igerman's line before departing with the militias, which was after he gets his military hardware and his garrote. He says, when it's commies, freaks, or third world Y chromosome mutants, we are there, the sons of the free.
Yeah.
Just to demonstrate that he's not going in to prosecute any crimes or arrest anybody. He is going there on a fascist killing spree. That is all he cares about.
It's a good old-fashioned freak hunt.
Yep. It is political, it is white supremacist, and it is not legal. It is above the law.
Extrajudicial. And I feel I should also clarify, freak hunt. Freak hunt. Just in case anyone misheard that one.
Can't imagine why they would.
I know, but I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
So, Igerman and his militias are making their way to Midian, and they've got Ashbury in the car with them. That Ashbury's the name of the priest, by the way. The movie hadn't said so, and it won't say so for another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, the film's really weird about not telling us what the characters are named at any point.
Yeah, it's terrible about it. But I guess they don't need to. Visual shorthand, and all the characters look distinctive enough. So, yeah. Ashbury is reciting Numbers 31:3 from the Bible. Slightly mistaken, or he's got a weird translation that I couldn't find.
Yeah, I went looking as well just to find out, probably for the same reasons you did, just what part of the Bible it was. And there's multiple translations or rewordings, I guess you could say, of the actual passage that he's reading.
Yep, it's all about Moses telling everyone to go slaughter the residents of Midian.
Yep.
Midian being a biblical town. Although there is some historical evidence that it did actually exist, so perhaps.
Yep. The bits surrounding it talk about the raising of the city of Midian and the slaughter of the men and the capture of the women and children. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's an appropriate choice for the biblical scholars. I assume Clive Barker did his research, because it's a good fit.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, he did have a very strict Catholic upbringing, which definitely shines through in a lot of his work.
Yeah, with his visions of hell, and I haven't even seen any of his other work, but
yeah, anything,
I'm unsurprised to learn that.
Anything that he does dealing with heaven, hell, it comes from a very particular place, which anyone who's had any dealings with Catholicism as a child will instantly recognize.
Yep, I was there, and I feel it. Radiating off the screen.
Yep.
Catholic poison.
Bit hard not to, really.
Yep. And he worked in a priest character, so he wants us to feel it.
Yeah.
Once they get to Midian, finally, they rig the whole graveyard with C4, and they put tripwires at all the exits, so anyone trying to escape is dead.
Yeah, I don't know if this was explicitly like a Vietnam allegory, but it kind of feels like it.
Could very well be.
This entire place is booby-trapped to high hell with claymores and petrol bombs and you name it.
Yeah, they specifically want to maximize casualties of people trying to flee for their lives.
Which we will see in abundance. Again, parts of this section in particular, parts of it are very hard to watch.
Yeah, I want to say these are explicit war crimes they're setting up, but they don't consider their victims people, so...
Yeah, crimes against humanity kind of loses its impact when they don't actually consider any of these people human.
Yeah, they don't have pulses, so legally they don't count.
Yeah, legally it's just, desecration of the dead, so have at it.
So Ashbury is not pleased with their plan to kill everybody. says it is wrong, and Eigerman is obviously not responsive to this discussion, and socks him one, sends him out of the whole plan.
Yeah.
Basically, he served no purpose.
There's lip service given to having him as some kind of moral support, emphasis on the moral part rather than morale. And then as the second he's like, no, what you are doing is genuinely wrong. He's like, okay, don't need you.
Yes, he immediately objects to the obvious evil occurring. He's really just there to bang the drum of when fascism comes to town, it'll be draped in the American flag and holding a Bible.
Yep. And the fact that he's probably the only human character other than Laurie who's like, now hang on a minute, what you're doing is fucking terrible, is surprising.
He's the fastest to have a crisis of conscience.
Yeah, come to Jesus moment, ironically.
Or appropriately. While they are setting up the bombs, Decker is on the scene. He came in the same car as Eigerman. He wants to show the detective that he's been working with the whole movie something in the cop car. Yeah,
Detective Joyce. Is, his name shows up like twice. Again, this film does not really. It doesn't waste any time with introductions beyond a few characters. Everyone else, it's like, this guy looks weird, and go.
Look at the pretty actors. Don't worry about their names. He shows the detective what's in his briefcase, which is a scary mask.
Oh man, I was hoping it was going to be a fluffy puppy. Ow, my back.
Yep. It does seem to be what the detective wanted, but as he's questioning Decker as to what the hell this is, Decker obviously slashes his throat. The detective is good and dead, finally.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning as well that he is essentially doing this in broad daylight because it hasn't gotten dark just yet. And he's doing it with maybe 50 cops and 100 militiamen around him. He has gone so far off the deep end, he does not care anymore. He is just horny for murder.
Yep. Utterly brazen and totally pointless. There is no reason for this scene, but...
Yeah, Joyce is 100% on his side up until this point.
Yeah. If anything, it's just supposed to satisfy the audience, who is at this point turned on Joyce because of his treatment of Onaka.
Yeah. At this point, everyone's just like, yeah, no, fuck everyone except the breed.
Yep. So it takes them so long to set up all the C4 that night falls. The whole reason they came out here at this time was because they discovered that sunlight kills Nightbreed, and they missed their chance. They should have just come back tomorrow.
Yeah, there was obviously no way the breed were going to run away during the night. Because, just place a couple of... If we're thinking about this logically, and, I hate that this is something you need to think about. Place a couple of guards to make sure no one gets away, and then come back at 10 the following morning.
Yeah, they blew their chances. They were so obsessed with rounding up their militia and getting their military-grade arms.
Every gun in Canada.
Yep, they blew their one advantage. But it does mean they get to film a gigantic explosion at the magic hour, so good for them.
Yeah, the explosion is... It's the kind of explosion you don't really get in modern day movies. It is they go for it with gusto.
Practical explosions are the name of the game for the next half hour.
Yep.
It's kind of amazing.
According to Barker, they were doing this, I think they said they did it about 6-7 o'clock in the evening. But as they were filming, a jet just flew overhead. And this is one of those, one and done shots. You cannot get a do-over in this. So they saw the jet flying over and they're like, oh, bugger, what do we do now? And according to Barker himself, you can actually see the jet in a couple of the shots. I was looking, I could not see it. So I don't know if that was just the theatrical edition. But yeah, keep an eye out for that if you can see it. God only knows what the people in the plane were thinking.
They probably felt like the comedian flying over the island in Watchmen.
Yeah.
When he discovers the giant squid base.
It's like, so the unspoiled Canadian wilderness, just so wonderful, so Jesus Christ, what was that?
They've got naturally occurring porcupine women here.
Really? Is that a thing?
What is in that Canadian water? So we see the destruction of the surface of Midian definitely wreaks havoc in the city of Midian underground. The first person it draws out is, of course, Peliquin. Apparently the most adept warrior of the Nightbreed, outside of the Berserkers.
Yeah, in the book, he's... when I say the book, I mean the Nightbreed Chronicles. His little blurb says he's known in certain quarters as the Great Virility, which they're very clear. That just means that he fucks a lot.
Fair enough.
But he also really enjoys slaughter and murder, to no one's surprise.
Yeah, who could blame him? He's good at it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're good at something, you want to do it a lot.
Once Peliquin is summoned to the surface, he pulls a move right out of Ernest Scared Stupid. He climbs on top of the hood of a cop car as it's driving, scares the guy into stopping, is thrown off of the hood, then the guy drives forward so as to run over Peliquin, and keeps driving into the hole that they caused with the explosion. His truck falls into the city of Midian and then blows up itself.
This entire sequence, the car falling into the pit, was actually done with miniatures. The car itself was basically like a larger scale Hot Wheels car. And they only had one shot at doing it. Again, it was a one and done because the miniature for the set of Midian apparently was very fragile. And any attempts to try and repair it were just very obvious, especially when compared with the full-scale one, which they were using as a set.
Yeah, I was wondering how they did a lot of the shots, specifically of Midian. And you say there is like a full-scale cavern with the rope bridges?
Yeah, we see some of it later on. But yeah, a lot of the sets that we see in that shot of the car going down, They did have full-scale replicas of to use as regular practical sets. But that one in particular was all miniatures. And it was, again, just a one-and-done.
Yeah, a lot of this finale. Thankfully, they did get extremely good shots of stuff blowing up, because they could not have done it a second time. And this is an $11 million budget, you said?
11 million, yeah. What would that be in today's money? That would be... Wow! Only 27,800,000 today. That's still not that much.
Pretty much nothing, yeah.
Yeah, that would be like a low budget movie today.
Yeah. A lot of the criticism this movie gets is for cheesy costume design and stuff. And I think a lot of the makeup suffered in exchange for this gigantic climax.
Yeah, if you actually look at a lot of the breed in the background, like there's a couple of characters who just have like a few prosthetic fingers dangling from their chin, or literally just weird body paint, and it works in the large crowd shots. I think it was something like 60 or 70 extras in total that they use. But when you actually look at them close up, it's like, yeah, probably best you keep you guys at a distance, huh?
Mm-hmm. At this point in the movie, they're going to start showing Nightbreed that we haven't seen before in almost every shot.
Yep. A lot of them just from behind as they're getting shot or falling over. So
yeah.
Saving a little bit of extra money there.
Yep. I have an image on my screen of a guy with a fake scar across his head, and that's his entire mutation. And a guy behind him with just like mottled skin that you would have in like your college zombie movie. And then way in the distant background, a guy with an actually decent mask, but you can't even see it.
Yeah.
This next half hour is a single scene of nonstop carnage and explosions and fire, and it is really, really, really well done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I bet 10 million of the 11 million went into this half hour.
They knew when and where to spend their money, and it definitely shows. They deserve all the applause.
Yeah, absolutely. It's honestly hard to imagine how people saw this last quarter of the film and didn't ultimately give it a decent review.
Yeah.
Because this movie is a sloppy mess. We pretty much made that abundantly clear at this point. But the payoff is really, really good.
Yeah. It's definitely more than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people that watch it can agree on that.
Yeah. So the truck exploding inside Midian causes quite the stampede of Nightbreed. So Lylesburg gets in the center of town, makes a big speech about how everyone just needs to stay calm, buckle down, put your head between your knees, and kiss your ass goodbye, basically.
And what happens?
Well, Boone shows up, mercifully, and says, don't listen to that guy. Everyone arm yourselves and fight these fuckers.
I would just love to see a webcomic called Everyone Ignores Lylesburg. It's just him going around saying, "No, we need to do this," and everyone else going, "Yeah, how about we don't?"
He is an embarrassingly ineffectual leader.
Stop, drop, and roll! Yeah, no, I'm going to go running around screaming if that's all the same for you.
Boone's speech is so inspiring that even Lylesburg is brought over to the side of, let's do some war.
In fairness, Boone raises some excellent points. At one point he says, if you're not going to do it for yourselves, do it for your children. Yeah. And he is absolutely right in that respect. But he literally just showed up 2 days ago. And he's already acting like a 4-star general. Like, why is anyone listening to him again?
They explain it very, very faintly with this really rushed plot point about the prophecy.
Yeah.
The cave paintings we've been seeing is they depict Boone becoming a Nightbreed and then doing something, and then the Nightbreed are happy forever.
Yeah, I always thought the prophecy, we'll get to it, but I always felt it was a bit of a cop-out. A bit cheap, all things considered.
Yeah. It's very underserved. If they were going to have it as a plot point, they needed to make it much more of a plot point.
Yeah.
Is this where Boone convinces Lylesburg to unleash the Berserkers?
I think it's either this scene or the next scene.
Yeah, around this point, Lylesburg's only job is get those Berserkers out of there. We're going to need them.
Yep. And during these sections in the director's cut, Lylesburg begins speaking with the German accent that he had in the theatrical cut. And I have no idea why. Doug Bradley re-recorded a whole load of dialogue for the film, as we said earlier. But this section, it feels like they missed a bit. And I honestly cannot understand why.
Yeah, that's very odd. So Boone convinces the entire society that it is time to do the Stonewall Riot.
Yep.
Yep. And on the surface, we've got cops shooting everybody, firing flamethrowers at Nightbreed. Anyone trying to escape, gunned down from behind.
It's worth noting as well that up until this point, until Boone's stirring speech, no one thinks to fight back. The only one who really does is Peliquin.
Yes, they're afraid of the guns, is what a lot of them say. So, they don't have projectiles, so Boone just breaks apart the coffins and gives them big, sticks so that they can beat back the cops and the militia.
Which, again, just makes it even dumber. We won't use our superpowers, but we'll use a plank of wood.
Yep.
I feel like there's a point being made, but I don't quite get it. Or I get it, but I think it's the wrong one, maybe.
Yep. Ashbury is going up to the various corpses of Nightbreed and blessing them to demonstrate his moral disgust.
Just kind of putting a band-aid on third-degree burns, but, we appreciate the effort.
Yeah, he's doing what he can. And more importantly, Buttonface bots a lorry and gives chase. He has basically nothing to gain from it at this point, but he's doing it anyway.
He is lost in the sauce.
Like you said, he's pretty much snapped.
Yeah.
Yep. If he sees someone, he's going to kill him.
And the entire time, we get lots and lots of shots of the militia and the cops gunning down defenseless individuals, explicitly murdering several children. And I have no idea how the executives could have watched any of this footage and been like, we're supposed to still see the cops as heroes, right? This is what we're supposed to be taking away from all this?
Yeah. I mean, you can't possibly root for the guys with some shit glued to their face. Therefore, the cops are the good guys. Lori runs into Midian, because she knows the layout, I guess, by this point. He's trying to escape Buttonface, and Narcisse confronts Buttonface, giving Lori a chance to escape, but instead she runs 100 feet and falls down a hole into the rope bridge cavern.
Yeah, which, again, as we'll say, amazing set. It really looks... the closest thing I can think of is the mindsets from Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones. It looks
totally
fantastic.
Yeah, and those are legendary shots. This movie, on a much, much lower budget, gets something comparable, and that is very impressive.
So ridiculously good.
Yeah. And it's a good thing Laurie shows up because Babette has been cornered by militia people who have now broken into Midian proper. He scoops up Babette right as a guy puts a gun to Laurie's head, says, give her up. And while the militia guy is distracted, Rachel sneaks up behind him and puts a fist through his chest from behind.
First time I saw that, I genuinely thought she'd done a heart rip on him. And
yeah, we're already getting a little too Temple of Doom. That would have pushed it over the line.
Yeah, even now, every time I watch it, I'm like, there should be a heart there, right? Like, did that get cut out? No, it was never there to begin with. Oh, okay. Why?
They could afford everything but the prop heart.
Couldn't have just gone to the butchers and gotten a cow heart, really.
Yeah, honestly, this is the sort of movie where I would expect them to take any excuse to get some organs on screen.
Yep.
Missed opportunity. That's why this got a 43% on Rotten Tomatoes. Ashbury finally decides to do something. He puts a gun to Eigerman's head and says, stop the madness. Eigerman has no respect for Ashbury, just says, go ahead, faggot, and disarms him immediately.
Yeah, Eigerman gives no two fucks about anyone or anything at this point. And just to hammer home how much of a big, badass, manly man he is, drops an F-slur.
Yeah. Gotta, really make it explicit that this is a homophobia allegory. Like, they are definitely doing Stonewall imagery on purpose.
Yep. There's really no two ways about it at this point. If you don't get the allegory, you have not been watching the film with your eyeballs.
Yep. And you are likely one of the executives who financed the entire film.
More than likely.
Yep. So Ashbury is about to be slaughtered by Eigerman. Boone happens by at that moment and saves Ashbury. Eigerman gets away. Boone insists that Ashbury vacate the premises, as well he should. But Ashbury insists on sticking around. He wants to stay with Boone.
Yeah, this is kind of weird.
This is very strange, yeah.
There's a part of me that thinks, okay, well, obviously he's doing the atonement thing because he's been about as much use as a chocolate teapot up until then. But he explicitly grabs his dog collar and throws it away. So, again, I think they're trying to say, like, well, the laws and God of man have done nothing for me. Let's see what you guys have to offer.
This is a major moment in the book. Because Ashbury's character is completely different in the book and actually meaningful and symbolically valuable.
Yeah, he's still kind of a drunk, but as I recall, he actually puts up more of a struggle when it comes to saying, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yes, you might have misread the book a little bit. Ashbury is transgender in the book.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that, yes.
Eigerman has compromising photos of Ashbury in women's underwear.
Yeah.
And Ashbury, to this day, since childhood, has been wearing women's underwear every day because they're transgender. By this point, Ashbury's robes are torn a little bit. Boone can see the lace underneath, points it out, and says, you have to forgive yourself. Can't keep beating yourself up like this.
That's right.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that particular plot point. Now you mention it, that's a lot more relevant to the themes of the book as a whole.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The film. Yeah.
Further making explicit the queer themes of the entire story.
Yep.
I have to say that was almost certainly censored out of this version of the story.
100%. I mean, I don't think they would have been able to even hint at that at the time.
Yeah.
That would have been on the chopping block immediately if they'd...
Yeah.
Like, this is Clive Barker, it's not a John Waters movie where you can get away with that sort of thing. You know, anything even remotely playing with the gender roles in 1989, 1990 would have been excised immediately.
Yep. They were openly discussing trans issues in 1988 in the book Cabal, upon which this is based. And indeed, that is pretty based. And that's a big part of why Ashbury seeks to be accepted by Boone and follow Boone around, because they want to be accepted by the Nightbreed. They belong here more so than they do in the human world. Yeah,
belonging and being loved is a very core theme of the book, but also the film in particular. Cheryl Ann earlier on, when she's talking to Laurie in the bar, she says that her mother said to her, Cheryl Ann, somewhere out there's a man with your name on his lips. Really setting the idea that everyone wants to belong to some group or someone or something bigger than they are.
Yeah, very much a found family thing.
Yep.
Laurie represents pulling Boone away from the found family and is not punished enough for it, honestly.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but I completely glossed, the last time I watched this, I completely glossed over just how horrible Laurie is at points.
Yeah. This is like the one story where it would have been perfect for the hero not to get the girl in the end, but this is not really the direction we're heading.
Nope.
We gotta have a Hollywood ending.
Yep.
Also in the book, Ashbury makes a huge speech in front of the militias, and in so doing talks them down, makes them lose their nerve for slaughtering children.
Yeah.
They all go home, and so do some of the cops.
Yeah, Ashbury's definitely a much more effective character in the book. I'd completely forgotten until you brought up the points that we've been talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's night and day. Ashbury is an excellent and very important character in the book, and should not have been in the film at all. They totally whiffed it.
Yeah. Ashbury is basically a name only in the film.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, the only point of having him here is the Eigerman wants to wave the Bible around and say he's an emissary of God.
Yep.
And have a priest by his side while he does it.
Yeah.
But the priest, even before they get there, says, I'm not on your side anymore.
You guys are dicks.
Yep. So Ashbury's on Boone's side. We'll see how long that lasts. Because Ashbury has weird allegiance changes nonstop for the rest of the film, as though we gave a shit about the character.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I gotta find my place in the notes.
I've got the next bit listed as Shuna Sassy's dance.
Oh, yep, there it is. Yeah. Meanwhile, we get to the best of the Nightbreed, finally doing something.
And a candidate for best scene in the film by people who really didn't know of any better back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. This is your furry awakening if you're not there already.
Furry or monster fucker, excuse me.
Yeah, big time. So we mentioned Shuni Sassy. Excellent design of a character, the Porcupine Woman.
Yep.
She's just been sort of in the background. Anytime they do a shot of monsters, they make sure to get Shuni Sassy in there because she looks excellent.
Yep.
She sort of passes the Avatar test of being as monstrous as you can be while still being fuckable by the average person.
Yep.
A real gateway drug.
Surprisingly, she wasn't in the original book.
No, yeah.
There were 4 characters who were created specifically for the film. Shuna Sassy, Devil Lude, and Leroy Gom. I don't know who the 4th one was. There's plenty of options as to who it could be.
I mean, Onaka is made up whole cloth, so that might be it.
Possibly. They only really go into those 3 in the commentary. But apparently, this bit blows my mind. 4 of the most striking characters in the film. And they were literally created in an afternoon between Clive Barker and Ralph McQuarrie, who did a lot of the concept art for the film. Just sat down, sketched them out, and they appeared basically fully formed. And that just completely blows my mind.
Yeah, they're incredibly memorable as well. He's talked about how when he wrote the book, he did a lot of impressionistic descriptions.
Yeah.
Sort of Lovecraftian, this is a flesh blob, and if I described it, you'd go mad.
Yep.
And then he decided to make a movie out of it, and he was fucked.
Yeah. How does it look? Horrifying, yes, but how does it actually look? Big lump of latex with a head on it?
Yeah. Shuni Sassy's fuckability ends up being a major plot point in this scene.
Yep.
Because she immediately seduces all the cops. And thereby catches them off guard and fills them with what turns out to be venomous porcupine quills that causes them to puke their guts out and die within seconds.
Yep. During this scene, if you actually look, you can see that she's naked but for a pair of underwear. And she was initially supposed to be completely naked, which, to my mind, actually makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But apparently someone got a bug up their butt about it and was like, no, put on the panties. And it just winds up being really obvious that she's got underwear, despite the fact she is covered head to toe in quills.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like makeup, but they should have been able to get away with it. But of course, they're cowards.
Yep.
Not the filmmakers, but the executives.
Yeah. So Someone just decided, no, put underwear on the sexy monster, and many people were disappointed for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the only scene in this entire movie that passes any monster fuckability standards. All the other monsters are very non-sexual. This is a very sexual movie about monsters, and none of the monsters would really, like, impress a person who likes monsters.
Yeah.
Boone is just a guy with little scribbles on his face. Peliquin's a predator. It's a little underwhelming.
Yeah. The thing
One
about
of many characters I'd love to see more
Yeah.
of, but no.
And she completely owns every moment of it. She's one of the few characters in this that never comes across as a victim.
Totally. She has very little screen time, and she conquers the screen every time she's there.
One line in the entire film.
Yeah. Justice for Sassy. It's about time we got a Sassy spinoff.
Oh,
I
yeah.
say.
She's a prominent character in the comics, unsurprisingly,
that'll do.
so you've got that much to go on.
So this is where Boone actually meets up with Lylesburg and gets him to release the Berserkers, and is told that Baphomet is going to explode. Baphomet has decided it's time to blow the whole place. We're going to kill the cops by killing all of Midian.
Yeah,
So there's a ticking clock as well.
Yeah, he's an alien god and a nuclear reactor. Who knew?
Mm-hmm. So they need to fully evacuate the place, or everyone will die. And in order to facilitate escape, they need to kill all the cops. So that's where Leroy Gom and his boyfriend come in, who I insist that this devil guy looks just like Howie Mandel. You don't get the reference, no one will, but I gotta show you what Howie Mandel looked like in this fucking movie.
See, I was thinking that Leroy Gom reminds me of Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall. Oh, yeah. Color him like jet black, and that is Devil Lude.
Yep. It always annoyed me because, yeah, the devil guy always shows up in a lot of promo material as well.
Yeah.
And he looks just like this character from Little Monsters, a movie no one saw.
I'd say Lude has better teeth, though.
Well, yeah.
And
I'm willing to grant that.
And he always seems cheerful. Like, he's having the time of his life throughout this entire section.
Meanwhile, his boyfriend with the gut tentacles says, "You take the big guy," and indeed he does.
Sucker.
Yep. And Leroy finally extends his tentacles. They have eyes at the end, and they go for the other guy's eyes and eat them.
Yep. Arguably one of the tamest moments in the entire film, weirdly.
Yeah. It has to be very slow because it's a practical effect.
Yeah.
And that takes away a lot of the impact. So Lylesburg is on his way to unleash the Berserkers. He's got a weird circular key that he sets in the wall, and just as he's doing so, one of the militia guys with a laser-sighted rifle takes aim and shoots him right in the center of his forehead.
This bit is so like the tech noir scene from The Terminator. It's not even funny. Just the smoke and the laser just piercing through the darkness. If it wasn't a direct reference, it's very coincidental.
But yeah, Lylesburg's dead. As soon as he fully dies, his gill slits that are all across his face open up, and there's eyeballs underneath.
Yep.
I guess he's been, like, holding his eyes shut so as to appear less freaky.
Yeah, they actually ask about that in the commentary. And the guy that's sitting with Barker is expecting some long, epic story about how he's always been holding himself back. And it's like, no, in death he finally sees. And the guy just sort of goes, oh. Barker's just like, nope, that is literally as deep as it gets.
Yeah, it seems like this symbolic gesture of him, like, finally no longer hiding his monstrous nature, like he's been suppressing his monstrousness this entire time, even among Nightbreed society. And that has been a symbolic thing of him, like, holding back the society, and now Boone has freed it.
Yep.
But no, in death he sees.
Yeah. Underwhelming.
Yep. And speaking of unleashing the monstrous society, Boone shows up and turns the key that unleashes the Berserkers once and for all.
The Berserkers...
I didn't even mention that the guy who killed Lylesburg, though, is a flying manta shark.
Yes. who splits apart into like 4 or 5 sections.
Yes. While it's flying, it clones itself 3 times over and slashes the guy with its manta wings, I guess.
Yeah. And if you're expecting the rest of the Berserkers to be similarly weird and creative, prepare to be disappointed because they all look like mutant linebackers.
Yeah, they're all gorillas. It's a gorilla cage that he opens up. So with the berserkers free, they burst out of the ground and grab a guy's dick so hard that he dies.
Yep. Like linebackers, they go straight for the balls.
Yeah, also like gorillas.
Yep.
They happen to burst out of the ground right next to a spot where some of the cops are like shooting at the feet of some cornered Nightbreed and making them dance.
Yeah, at this point they are just straight up torturing them.
Oh yeah, a lot of sadism. They kill their way up to the cop in the front, break him to bits, and then one of the Nightbreed who is being tortured is a naked lady covered in makeup, and she just walks over, wipes some of the blood off of his face, and eats it.
She wipes some of the blood off his face, rubs it on her nipples, and then licks it off her fingers.
Oh yeah, right.
I do not have any words for that. Whatever the hell that was about. When I was watching it, I had to rewind it. Not for perverted reasons, but just because I was like, did she actually just do... Come on, this is me. I'm honest about that shit. But
True.
I had to know. I was like, she did actually just... Okay, yeah, that's... Huh. Thank God I'm too old for that to awaken anything in me.
It's very weird. And just a totally human Nightbreed.
Yeah.
Has to eat blood and has to do it naked.
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. One of the berserkers has cornered the guy with the flamethrower, who is going to shoot it with the flamethrower, but the flamethrower jams? You fucking kidding me?
That's a thing that happens, apparently?
Yeah, the flamethrower jams, and the guy tries to run away, but he's like, his weight is thrown off by the backpack full of fuel, so he falls backwards into one of the big flames that he's started, and the fuel ignites, and he explodes, because everything explodes at this point in the movie.
You could make the case that this is evil will be its own defeat.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to believe that everyone just got tanked up before they decided to go beat on the freaks.
Mm-hmm. They do show the militia guys, like, drinking beer and making a beer fountain.
Everyone has been shotgunning beers from dawn till about 7 p.m.
So, the berserkers have terrified everyone out of Midian. People are running for their lives. The militia, they've lost their nerve. And Eigerman is trying to get them to stop. He points his gun at them and shouts at them to come back. And then he attempts to fire his gun at them, but he's out of ammo.
And then screams, "I'll kill all of you!"
Yep.
Like the actor that played Eigerman, Charles Hayde, he was having a blast doing this film. And he is such a good, creepy bad guy. I mean this with the utmost respect. But this guy could be a brilliant Hitler.
Yeah, honestly, that wouldn't be bad casting.
Yeah, he would crush that role, I'm sure.
Yep. He's in a fairly small portion of the film, less than half of the movie, and he has to be the main bad guy in a movie that also has David Cronenberg as Decker, so...
Yeah. He's punching above his weight class, that's for sure.
Yeah. He has to play it big and convincingly, and he pretty much nails it.
Oh, yeah.
While he's trying to get people to stop, he jumps on the hood of a cop car while the cops are trying to escape, demands some armaments from them. While he's doing that, the berserker shows up, so he runs away. And while he's running away, a guy with a rocket launcher takes aim on the berserkers who are attacking this cop car.
Because once we've got claymores and garrots and flamethrowers, why the fuck wouldn't we have a rocket launcher?
Yeah.
Fucking anti-tank rifles everywhere. Jesus.
Yeah, by this point, just anything you can imagine is happening somewhere in Midian. The rocket launcher guy, he goes to shoot the berserkers. He misses. He blows up the cop car.
Whiffs so dramatically. The berserkers just stop, look at him, and then start striding over to him like, "Oh, you think that's funny, do you?"
Yeah, he threads the needle between two berserkers just to hit the cop car.
Really impressive.
Yeah. Finally, Decker shows back up. Been quite a while amidst all the chaos. Making his way over to Boone, and we see that Decker is carrying aloft Narcisse's severed head on a knife.
And the prop that they have for Narcisse's head is actually surprisingly good. A lot of the, severed limb gags at this point looked genuinely atrocious. This one actually looks pretty decent.
It's got his face, and faces are hard to do, so
yeah,
that's what counts. And Narcisse is out of the film. Narcisse, If any character was like the most likable character after Onaka.
Yeah. He does survive in the theatrical cut and shows up again in the comics since they followed the canon of the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I heard there was early screenings that were so pissed that Narcisse died.
Yeah,
they unkilled him.
Yeah, this scene was meant to be in the theatrical cut, but people were like, "No, we like him. He's funny."
Yep. And they were right, but they got to get some extra pathos here right at the very end.
Yep.
And also, Narcisse does die in the book, and this is relentlessly attached to the book.
Yeah.
Even when it shouldn't be. That obviously begins the final confrontation between Boone and Decker, which immediately leads to them falling through the ground. The ground is so compromised at this point. People are nonstop falling through it.
Yeah, they start fighting on the flimsy rope bridges, which lasts for about 2 seconds before everything goes horrible.
Yep. They have a epic knife fight on the stony bridge. Decker's a blade man. The bridges start falling apart because Midian's on its last legs. It looks like after a big fall from one bridge to another, that Decker is down for the count. He's had a comic book death. So Boone is feeling very confident. He gets up and walks away, injured but the clear victor. But then Decker also gets up because he obviously wasn't dead.
And also, at this point, he is a slasher from a regular horror movie.
Yeah, he's Michael Myers. He's unstoppable. He's brandishing a blade that is at least a foot long.
Seriously, the knives he uses in this film are ridiculous.
They are hilarious, honestly.
These things look like they are custom built for murder and nothing else. At one point, I can't remember when it is, but one of the knives he uses reminded me of Helsing. Alexander Anderson uses, I think they're meant to be like trowels for plastering, but they're also like a 1.5 long and razor sharp, and it looks so much like that.
Yeah, you don't really see knives this laughably huge, but
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if they're supposed to be phallic representations, especially given that the next thing Decker does, once he gets on his feet, he takes his gigantic knife, hurls it across the rope bridge, and through Boone.
Yeah, all this foreplay, and he finally gets to penetrate him.
Yep, in the back, out the front. Just like Boone likes it?
I think legally I'm not allowed to make any comments, otherwise it counts as a hate crime. Just good one. Finger guns, pew pew. Not Boone touching that one in the slightest.
By this point, Boone is such a master bottom that he just takes that knife and keeps on going. The fight continues.
Takes it in his stride. Yes, we'll go with that one.
Yep. And that was Decker's best knife, so he's basically unarmed at this point.
Oh, that was my best killing knife. Oh, man.
He clonks Decker over the head with a skull. Decker manages to push him over the edge of one of the staircases around the outside of the cavern, and he lands chest first on a table with playing cards on it and gets an ace of hearts stuck to the center of his chest through the knife.
Yeah, really, I always thought it should have been the ace of spades, the death card. Ace of hearts just feels a bit too cutesy.
It's so fucking silly. This is one of the silliest choices in the movie.
Yeah, and
that's saying a lot.
The way the card lines up on the knife, it is straight through the middle. It is impossible for it to have happened that way. But, this being a film, that's how it works.
Yeah, and the card must have been face down on the table because now the ace part is clearly visible. We can see Boone's heart on his chest, I guess.
Yeah. Again, this film is not subtle.
Boone gets the upper hand on Decker, hits him with a mirror and clubs him with a table leg and just beats the shit out of him, gets him to the edge of the cavern. And
so much edging going on. What the hell?
Yeah, but finally they're about to reach glorious climax. Before he can push Decker over the edge, he says, "One last dance," and gives him a knife hug in easily the most sexual kill I have ever seen in any film. He squeezes himself bodily onto Decker and through his body.
There's a lot of full body penetration going on in these last couple of minutes. And, at this point, I just give up. I'm like, yeah, fine. Let's go with that.
Yeah, it's incredibly suggestive. I've actually been toning it down with my language thus far. this hasn't even been what the movie's been building towards. Like, the sexual tension really isn't there. If you want to see the movie where a villain wants to fuck the protagonist, watch any Disney movie. Because this movie does not have it.
Watch Ichi the Killer.
Yeah.
that again does it way more explicitly.
Yep. Here it just sort of comes out of nowhere. The symbolism does not match the actual messaging of the film, but it's there.
Yeah, it's first time I saw it, I actually, well, not the first time. The first time I saw the director's cut, I literally just started laughing because I'd forgotten how cheesy it was.
Yeah, this is a very funny killing a serial killer sequence.
Yeah. Give me a hug. Squelch.
Yep. And as one final insult, Boone rips the mask off of Decker and reveals him for his true self as one, it's not how he wants to die, but it's how he's going to die.
The really crazy thing as well, apparently this was Cronenberg's first day on set. These were the first. Wow. This was the first sequence he shot in the entire film, which that had to be weird.
Yep.
Just him showing up saying, "So you're saying that I get impaled on the guy with the weird tattoos? Is that what we're going with?" Okay, just gonna work on my script in the meantime.
Yeah, maybe that's why he checked out for the rest of the film.
I was like, can't get any weirder than this. And he was right.
They want me to be gay for this monster and then get impaled. That's where this is all headed, I guess.
Fuck it, I'm gonna go write Naked Lunch and show him how it's really done.
Yeah. Laurie was witness to this whole breakup,
debacle?
I guess. Yeah. And now Boone needs Laurie to pull the knife out of his chest.
I imagine it's, in fairness, I imagine it's a lot like trying to scratch an itch you really cannot get. Like, he just really can't quite get the leverage to pull the knife out. So I'm going to allow this one.
Pulls the knife out, and the Ace of Hearts still pinned there on his chest, stuck there with blood. And just as the knife is removed, Baphomet calls to him. And Laurie says, "We gotta go," but Boone insists on heeding Baphomet's call. And as he does so, he grabs the heart off of his chest and hurls it aside. He has symbolically discarded Laurie's love.
He is discarding his heart.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this would be a good point to, like, separate him and Laurie for good.
God
Not what
knows
happens. Laurie easily follows him to Baphomet's chamber once again.
Yeah, at this point, it almost seems like he is purposefully trying to ditch her, either because he wants to save her or just because he's bored with her saying, "No, you've got to come with me" all the time.
He has ditched her so many fucking times in this movie.
Neither of them are getting the point here.
Yep. Laurie is intensely codependent, and it's really, really unhealthy for both of them.
Codependent and controlling, and I speak from a position of knowledge here. That is a deadly combination.
Totally.
Like, that is a kind of relationship that can only end in knives.
Boone's journey of self-discovery continues, with Laurie tagging along and complaining the whole time. When they get to Baphomet's chamber, for some reason, Ashbury's there. Why not? Boone's the only one who needs to be here. Baphomet picks him up, looks him in the eye, and tells him that the destruction of Midian was inevitable, but nonetheless, you destroyed it, and you need to go build a new one.
Yep. The way they phrase it in the book, as I recall, is Baphomet is the one who made Midian. Boone is the one who unmade Midian, which is a really nice line.
Mm-hmm. So now Boone has destiny, make a new Midian, and he has a new name. Baphomet says, "You are now Cabal," the title of the book.
Again, this is arguably more of a recent thing, but Boone is now his dead name.
Yeah, totally.
he is now officially Cabal. And as I recall in the book, all the Nightbreed start calling him Cabal from this point. Laurie's the only one who still refers to him as Boone. So
yep, for symbolism. I'm glad you pointed that out because, yeah, I do think this is, if not intentionally symbolic of choosing a new name as you go on your journey of self-discovery. It certainly works out that way. They wanted to call the movie Cabal because it's the name of the book. The executives insisted on a name that, would draw more audiences' interest. Sounded like a horror film. And I think this is the one time the executives were 100% correct.
Yeah. I remember reading one of the reasons why they shot down the name Cabal was because it sounded too sinister. I might be making this up. I vaguely recall Barker saying that at one point he thought Nightbreed sounded like a porn movie. Which he's not entirely wrong. Yeah,
totally.
But yeah, Nightbreed is a lot punchier and more direct, whereas Cabal could literally be anything.
Pretty much. Honestly, what I read on Wikipedia was that the executive said, nobody knows what Cabal means. Call it Nightbreed. Cabal is a real word, and Nightbreed is nonsense.
Yeah.
Whatever. So then Ashbury decides to go up for communion because he's a Catholic and he thinks it's his turn.
Old habits die hard, I guess.
Yeah. Decides to go and get his prize for Baphomet. Meanwhile, Laurie and Cabal escape. Laurie finds one of Decker's knives stuck in the wall and inexplicably decides to take it. Back in Baphomet's chamber, Ashbury gets a facial.
Oh.
That is exactly what it looks like. He goes for Baphomet's boiling blood. As soon as he's about to reach out and touch the baptismal pool of it, Baphomet gives him a stern look and flips the bowl in his face, and it leaves just this white cream all over his face and jacket.
Yeah, the theatrical cut, it just happens as an accident. Somehow this baptismal font, I guess you can call it, is just standing there, and then all of a sudden everything's up in the air, and Ashbury's getting pasted with Baphomet's love.
Yeah.
In this, it's much more deliberate. It's almost like Baphomet's cursing Ashbury for, I know, his temerity, his insolence, however you want to put it. But it's much more of a deliberate act as opposed to the theatrical cut.
Well, all they changed was Baphomet giving that stern look, which I guess was not in the theatrical cut. And it just showed Ashbury reaching out and then the bowl tipping over into his face. Which, when I saw this the first time, I thought for sure he had just accidentally slipped amidst all the chaos of the exploding Midian and spilled it all over himself, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's kind of the implication. Is one of the explosions on the surface has knocked it over somehow, straight into his face.
Yeah.
But the theatrical cut makes it much more explicit. No, this is a punishment for you.
Yeah. I guess that's what they needed, but it still doesn't make Ashbury a valuable character or really explain anything. But what it does is it burns off all of Ashbury's hair and gives him a big fat head.
Yeah, the back of his head looks like one of those Sphinx cats with all the skin rolls at the back of his head. But it's a really fat Sphinx cat.
And he was honestly kind of handsome. He ends up being just sort of an ugly Nightbreed. Not very scary even, just sort of ugly. This is the last thing that happens in Midian before it finally collapses once and for all. The whole place goes up in flames. We actually see like the rope bridge area burn, which I assume is a miniature shot.
Yeah, all the final shots of the destruction was them just basically torching the miniatures. You can actually see a big puff of smoke and sparks flying everywhere, which is kind of a giveaway that it's miniatures.
Yeah. Still looks very good.
Oh yeah, the destruction of Midian is definitely a standout sequence in the film.
Yeah, Cabal and Laurie observe it from a great distance, which means what they're looking at is the matte painting with an effect of fire laid over it.
Yeah, again, the matte painting comes back for one last hurrah, and it looks as cheesy as it ever did.
Yeah, it honestly looked better in every other instance of its use throughout the film.
Yeah, it's the 1980s visual equivalent of someone superimposing a GIF sprite over, I don't know, the Twin Towers or something.
Yeah, but I mean, we're in the afterglow of the film at this point.
Yeah,
the last 20 minutes have just been nonstop explosions, so you're satisfied. You're smoking a cigarette at this point.
And in fairness, the shot that we see of Laurie and Cabal standing on top of a hill, just as I'm not sure whether it's the dawn that's meant to be coming up or if it's the burning embers of Midian, but it's a very pretty shot just seeing them in silhouette in sort of the half-light.
Yeah, we see later on at the very final shot of the film that this is part of the prophecy wall, them standing on top of a hill with stars behind them.
Yeah.
The cinematographer nailed it.
Yeah. Again, this was another scene that was completely missing from the theatrical cut. It basically just goes from the destruction to the survivors huddling together in a barn with occasional shots of Laurie and Cabal. And it's really underwhelming. Like you can tell they were desperately trying to wrap it up in the 2.5 minutes that they had left.
Yeah. It's underwhelming, but the director's cut drags.
A little bit.
They did not really reach a happy medium there.
Yeah, it feels like they were trying to really channel the feeling of the end of the book.
Yep.
Because the book ends on a very bittersweet note. And it doesn't really hit here.
Nah. Yeah, there were other ways they could have done it, but they did it this way, which is Cabal and Laurie having a breakup on top of the hill. Cabal needs to go fulfill his destiny. Laurie wants his destiny to be, you stay with me for the rest of your goddamn life, which is immortal now.
Yep.
Boone points out that she's going to die before him, and so they're incompatible at this point in every possible way. So Laurie says, make me a goddamn Nightbreed. And
he says, absolutely not.
Yeah, seriously. He says, he's actually way more understanding. He says, I'll come back for you once I have founded a new Midian. And she says, I'll be 90 by then. I don't even want you at that point.
And then she starts guilt-tripping him, saying, I went through hell to find you and you're just gonna go. And it's like, he literally has a mission from God.
Yeah.
Perspective, please.
She does not accept any of this. She says, just go. You asshole. Go find your new Midian. What do I care?
And if they'd left it there?
If they'd left it there, it would have been annoying, but acceptable. Instead, they got to go another step. Laurie changes her mind.
Literally says, I changed my mind.
Yep. She has to be a Nightbreed. She has to stay with Boone. And the only way to do that is to stab herself with the Decker's knife that she stole.
Yeah. Now, I know that the intent is for this to be a really romantic, self-sacrificing moment. But it really just feels like she's forcing herself into his life. And because they will essentially be immortal, he's never getting away from her ever again.
Yeah, he has made herself the immortal ball and chain.
Yeah, and it's trying to look at this in, anything other than you were forcing him to either walk away and leave you to die, or to, anchor himself to you for the rest of your eternity. That's really shitty to do to anyone.
It's incredibly toxic and unpleasant.
It was this scene in particular that I was like, oh no, fuck Laurie.
Yeah, they sort of retroactively ruin Laurie's character, because she does... Yeah. She is sympathetic to the Nightbreed, unlike most humans, and that's respectable. And if she had just gone on her way, having gained that knowledge about herself and the acceptance of freaks in the world, that would have been great. Could
have left it with, I know you have a greater calling, I'll always love you, I'll think of you frequently. Bittersweet, nice, let them part. But
yep. It's almost a commentary on bad relationships, but it's hard to tell how intentional that is.
Yeah. Again, I'd seen a few people say it's basically enforced heteronormality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will not go a day with your bunch of freak weirdos without me being there.
Yeah. And it means we will never see any stories of Boone interacting with the other Nightbreed and getting close to them, maybe striking up that relationship with Sassy that they hinted at.
I like to call them Bassie. Or Shoon. No, that sounds weird.
Shabal.
That sounds offensive.
Well, we don't have to worry about that power couple, because he gives Laurie her vampire bite. There's a fake out that it's too late and she's already dead, but then she just pops back awake. Yeah. And they live happily ever after for all eternity.
Yay.
Yeah. Cut to Igerman stumbling out of the wreckage of Midian, looking like fucking Apocalypse Now.
Seriously, he is Martin Sheen rising out of the lake of blood.
Yeah, he is intensely ragged, burnt to a crisp, but still on his feet. And he happens upon Ashbury. Ashbury's just sort of dicking around.
Yeah, this scene, first time I saw it in the director's cut, I was like, oh, okay, it's closer to the original ending of the book. Mm-hmm. Because in the book, Igerman finds Ashbury, who's been burned. He's blinded by the blood of Baphomet splashing onto him. But he says...
The explosion of Midian, Ashbury was caught in the detonation.
Ah, right.
His limbs were burned off, most of his flesh was burned off, and he is saved in hospital.
Ah, that's right.
And is now, just like a torso with a head on it.
Yeah, but he says that he knows how to find the rest of the breed. And Ashbury's like, well,
smell their god.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't know if this guy is completely snooker loopy, but fuck it, I've got nothing better to do. Let's go hunting.
Yep. Ashbury is now a Nightbreed when Eigerman begs to join him on his quest to defeat Baphomet as revenge for getting burned. He grabs Eigerman by the throat, pins him up against the wall, and squeezes it until his throat explodes and he bleeds to death.
And this is still better than the theatrical cut.
Yeah. I mean, knowing as they do that they're not going to get a sequel when the director's cut was made, this is more satisfying because Eigerman dies.
Yeah. The theatrical cut, something you also didn't mention, Ashbury is basically praying in front of an altar made of the remains of Decker. Like, you see the remains of his mask and everything. But in the theatrical cut, he basically has Decker's body tied up onto a graveyard statue, almost like a parody of the crucifixion. Grabs hold of a handful of Baphomet's blood, which looks even goopier and slimier in this one particular shot, and jams it into the wound in his chest, which looks like a dramatic reenactment of a very particular scene from Videodrome. And that causes Decker to scream and start grabbing at the camera. It looks very stupid, and they deliberately did it that way because the executives told them to reshoot a better ending.
Mm-hmm.
So they literally just half-assed the dumbest ending they could possibly think of and went, yep, good enough.
Yeah, I guess they wanted their sequel to be Decker and Ashbury together as resurrected Baphomet monsters hunting Nightbreed.
Yeah,
that would have been a dog shit sequel.
It would have gone straight to video, and it would have made some of the later Hellraiser sequels look like Citizen. And I like some of the later Hellraiser sequels.
Thankfully, in this version, Decker stays dead, and Eigerman goes with him. So our two main villains are gone, but we got a new one. It's Ashbury.
To be continued. Nah, I'm not even going to do that gag.
Yep. Then we just get a shot of a barn with the remaining Nightbreed hanging out in there. Babette asks when is Cabal going to come save us? And they say later on. And that's it. Roll credits.
He'll show up eventually.
Yep.
Yeah, hero shot of Cabal and Laurie on the hill. Cut to credit.
Yeah. It seems like they are not going to integrate themselves in society in this version. Like, they're just waiting for Cabal, and they're probably going to help him set up the new Midian at their earliest convenience. In the book, they spread out, and they sort of integrate with the world.
Yeah, the book makes it, it's still a fairly downbeat ending, but the book makes it sound a lot more, I guess, romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Saying it will be spread to the four winds, he will come for us someday, we will have a new Midian. Some of us may lose our way, some of us may fall in love with humans, but we are all Baphomet's children, so, which I feel like they tried to do here, but they just didn't have the budget.
Yeah, I like the ending in the book a lot, and this ending is bad. It keeps going and going, and it ruins the pacing, and it really takes a dump on that last 20-minute scene of action.
Yeah, I would say just once you get to Boone walking away from Laurie, just turn it off. Done. Trust me, you'll thank us later.
Not the director's cut or the Cabal cut, just the non-toxic cut.
The static edition.
Yeah. And that's Nightbreed. Deeply, deeply flawed film.
Yeah, as much as we have made fun of the film, it is astonishing that we were able to get this version of it released, let alone seen.
Yeah, it took almost 25 years for the director's cut to be finally made.
The first tapes weren't found until about 2009. Nearly 20 years before even the hope of it happening was, even a possibility. But as dumb as some sections of it are, it's still a fantastic movie. The character designs are still some of Barker's best. The breed are human in a way that you don't really see in a lot of films even today.
Yeah, I was dying for more of the Monster Society, more of the really enjoyable characters. It focuses on the wrong things. There's a fantastic film buried in Nightbreed somewhere, and despite the many, many attempts to recut it, they can't find it, and they never will, because the parts that you really, really want aren't there. They were never shot.
Yeah. As I said, like, there is a perfect version of it somewhere. Whether it's in Clive Barker's head, or, you know, whether it could be cobbled together from bits of existing material, I don't know. It's out there somewhere, and, you know, someday I hope I get to see it.
If anything, this movie should have been remade. This is a perfect candidate for a remake because it is so deeply flawed. It's a great idea that was not executed properly, so a remake could have saved it, and the time to do it was about 15 years ago, before CG made it so that a remake would just be ugly slop.
Yeah, if this was going to be remade, it would need to be all practical effects.
Yeah, right around 2010 was the last huzzah for really good practical effects that this film would need, and really strong cultural acceptance of queer issues that you could really openly discuss rather than just talk around the way that this 1990 movie did.
There's been rumors of a remake or a TV show floating around for about a decade or so. If they did it, you know, really focused on what makes it good and expanding on everything, especially today, I feel like it is the kind of show that would find an absolutely obsessive audience and would really find not just the audience that it deserves, but would also really resonate with a lot of people in very specific ways.
Yeah, because this movie desperately wanted to be a trilogy. You can see it in the film, and it really wrecked the pacing that they tried to cram a trilogy into 2 hours. And if they had a full series, that would have alleviated the problem. Give everything time to breathe, give more character development, everything you want, it'd be great. And with the, way that Bill Skarsgård is remaking everything and constantly dressing up as monsters. Yeah. Yeah, he'd be the perfect choice. Maybe as he runs out of things to remake, this could be on the table, and he'd be perfect for one of the roles. Pelican, maybe?
Yeah. I was thinking Pelican or Kinski.
Yeah.
Probably Kinski, because he strikes me, at the very least in the movie, definitely in the comics, he's the more thoughtful, enlightened, I guess, member of the breed. And also he is another weird, creepy little guy that he can, you know, carve onto his belt like another notch.
Totally. Yeah, Kinski needed some further development along with so many other characters.
Yeah. It's a frustrating film.
Yep. The book is also very flawed. It's 250 pages, and it just sort of meanders and drags the characters back and forth from Midian, and yeah, it's never been told perfectly, but the story is intensely compelling, and I love it. There's no perfect version of its telling, unless the comic book is really good, and I haven't tried that yet. Didn't think so.
Making a lot of assumptions there.
Yeah.
The comics are adequate. They are very 1990s, so they pull a lot of punches with a lot of the more disturbing visuals and concept and so forth.
Therefore, by process of elimination, the perfect version of Nightbreed is the video games.
Yes.
Those 2 Atari games tell the story better than anything else.
Yes, never mind the fact that one of them, the action game, has you going around punching all the breed. Kind of lost the core concept there, I think.
That doesn't even make any sense, but I do kind of love it.
Really doesn't.
So yeah, that's Nightbreed. It's a mess, but I can't help but love it. I love the messaging. The whole queer subtext is really, really strong. The anti-cop messages are decades ahead of their time.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of imagery in this that bizarrely predates real life events. And watching it, you know, with those in mind makes it really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. In a good way. You should be uncomfortable with the topics they're discussing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if you're not feeling uncomfortable when you're watching Boone get beaten down in the cell or Onaka's death scene, then ask yourself why.
Yeah. Yeah, Barker was really on one when he wrote this story, and he didn't nail it. No one has yet, and that's fine. I highly recommend watching the movie. It's entertaining as hell, and the audiobook is free on YouTube, and it's really good.
Yep. The film is a wonderful catastrophe. The book is a decent read.
Yep. And That's about all anyone could possibly say about Nightbreed at this time.
I think we've probably said more about Nightbreed in the last couple of hours than anyone outside of the actual making of the film.
Yep. I knew we would go long on this one. I've heard a podcast on Nightbreed before. It was a two-parter, and each of the two-parters were like 2.5 hours long. So
yeah,
there's so much crammed into this time period.
A hearty recommend from both of us, I think.
Yep. So thanks for joining us. If you want more of my nonsense, I'm over at youtube.com/Fiendly. Many, frankly, too many videos over there.
And if you want to follow us on Instagram, we are at Problem Addicts Podcast.
Yeah, join us over there. I literally can't join Instagram. Their fucking sign-up process is too deeply flawed. Every time I get to the end, it says an unknown error occurred. Try again later. Yeah,
try signing in on the website. That was the only way I was able to get everything up and running.
I have.
Well, shit's fucked then.
Pretty much. But if you can get into Instagram, give it a shot. There's few better things to do over there because it's a bad website. All right, folks, we will return with more Problematics. If you enjoyed this, for the love of God, tell us. We are dying for feedback of any sort, as long as it's constructive and not being an asshole.
Love us.
Seriously. Or hate us constructively.
I mean, to be honest, I would probably be more comfortable with the hate.
Yeah. You want to leave any reviews, like these blabbermouths sucked and irritated me for 2 hours? We need it. As long as you leave 5 stars as well.
Just if you feel the need to say, but what's up with the Scottish guy, then maybe just keep it to yourself. Like, I know what's up with the Scottish guy. Nothing fun, okay?
That's a step too far. Meanwhile, I enjoy hate mail. My favorite thing on my political video essays. People being very, very shallow.
Some people just don't like being made to think.
Yeah. Either way, please give us some feedback. Please join us in the future for more Problematics.
Later, taters.
Have yourselves a good one.
You'll come back now, you hear?